Hello. I think we have the mayor on. So it is past 1. That said, we are going to get started, and I guess our other colleagues will join us soon. First thing we have on the agenda, I just want to make sure we have the mayor online. Cool. So first on the agenda, I guess, will be the adoption of the agenda. It was requested that we make one small change to do the succession planning first. I am told it will be rather quickly, and if there are no objections to that.
So moved, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a
Adrian, you had
second.
something?
Yeah, where's the succession planning on the agenda? Where's the?
It was on here yesterday. It's on here. It was near the end, I believe.
Did they take it off?
Oh, my gosh.
So,
It's on the.
are we not? Okay, well then, never mind.
It's not on here.
We can ignore that request then.
Okay, so,
Listen, I just do what staff tells me.
so do I.
So then, I guess we have, confirming we have no issues with the agenda as
It's the election item, not the succession item.
the election days,
Take
that's
that
what we want to
first.
move to the
That's the
front?
item, yes, adopted.
Okay, so, we okay moving the election item to the front?
yes, I am.
I move that we adopt
We
the.
already had it.
We already
Oh, we
adopted.
did
Get
that.
a get a motion and a second?
Yeah,
Yep.
there's the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, anything to add?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, okay, so, is that just a voice vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? So on that, approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any comment? No. Nope, they're just moving stuff. Me, thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Cool. That's approved. First item, Madam Clerk.
First item, I believe, is the election.
Who's on deck?
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, this item was approved by the commission back in July 2021. As staff reviews it for implementation, they're asking for some clarification on the decision that has already been made. And so I believe Ms. Laura Gretz, or is it Scott Hefner is here to present on behalf of HR. So this is Mr. Scott Hefner.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission. I'm Scott Hefner from Human Resources. As the manager just mentioned, we're looking for clarification on one item. Primarily, what elections would be recognized for a holiday. So the motion was already made to make city election days a holiday. We wanted to clarify that that did mean only elections that are within the corporate limits of the city, and whether that meant all elections or just a general election, for example. Also, some other items for clarification in case it's important to everyone. There are some members of the employee workforce that do have to come to work on holidays, so they would earn premium pay on those days rather than being off. And you'll see that there are some examples of other cities or other corporate areas that have an election day as a holiday and the estimates for the costs associated with that. Please bear in mind that with the city of Tallahassee and Leon County, the numbers reflect only the premium pay associated with those folks coming into work. It's not paying folks not to work that day, which is an opportunity cost that's significant. Just for reference, on the third page, second slide, let's see if we can get to that. Okay, so at the bottom right, you'll see a number, $516,603 and some change. That is the total cost of the most recent holiday that the city observed. That was MLK birthday in January. So just a reference point so that you're all aware of that. And in terms of implementing an election day as a holiday, that's a benefit that has to be negotiated with the collective bargaining units. We have some flexible language in some of the agreements, the CWA, the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, and the amalgamated transit unit, so that in the event the city commission designates any additional holidays, we would just agree that the parties would go back to the table to negotiate the terms of that holiday. For the IAFF, we don't have necessarily the same language, so we would have to request a mutual reopener, and we could certainly do that. So just some information for awareness. On the next slide, and I'll certainly pause in case there are any questions.
Anyone?
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. So some options, these are just deliberations reflecting what the charter officers and staff discussed. One would be to recognize an election day as a paid holiday. We could observe and recognize all election days without making it a holiday. Could allow 1 to 2 hours so that folks could go to the polls if it coincided with their normal shift, or offer flex time employees to vote so that they could vote on election day. That is the totality of the presentation, and I'll ask if there are any questions related to this.
You have some. Commissioner Hayes Sanchez.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I believe that we should do the up to 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours, for voting for times when there is a city election happening within the city limits. That gives enough time. The goal is to get people to vote, and that gives enough time for people to vote. I think a whole day off, that's a significant budgetary cost. So that's what I would like for us to consider moving forward on. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Chestnut.
I would agree with that, which is option 3, to allow have 1 to 2 hours off during the election day. Now, this is for general election, on general election day. Did you want all
That's the point of clarification, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
so if we had all voting, I guess we need to specify, so it would be, are we talking about the presidential election, the primary election, the city
There's
would not be?
only two at this point, yeah.
Okay,
Unless we have a special one.
okay, all right, so it'd just be the presidential and the general
Well, no, there would also be a primary.
and the primary, so 3. Okay, and of course, then that's just coordinating it with your supervisor so that we have ample staff on board. Okay, I would support that, but just spell out which elections we're talking about so that it's clear.
Madam Manager, any comment?
I think that, I was just making sure with Scott if he thought that was clear enough in terms of those 3, the primary, presidential, I guess, between the city.
Right, so the presidential obviously would only
Presidential
occur,
preference,
that would be every 4 years. The general election and primary would occur every even year.
right?
Okay.
Well,
And
and
then
then there's a primary as well.
and the
Well, no, no,
primary.
it's the-
Well, there's 2. Presidential preference and then primary and all
So every 4 years, I'm sorry. Every 4 years, there are 3 election days, and every 2 years, the other, every 2 years, there are 2, so,
Okay.
unless there's a special election.
Yeah.
I support this, the 1 to 2 hours as well.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Why don't you just check real quick? Does Mayor have anything to add? Thanks, I can't hear you.
Yeah, did I hear him recognized?
Yes.
I would like to consider, I mean, the goal of this is to make sure that our employees have the opportunity to vote on election day. And so I think it's important that this is used for that purpose. And so we need to be able to validate if someone's voted by mail or voted early, whether they would be eligible. And I think maybe an alternative, because that would take some clerical work, we would have to get updates from the supervisor's office, which is not impossible, but it is work. If they wanted to use that 1 to 2 hours to assist other people in getting to the polls to vote on election day, that could potentially be an allowable use. But I do think that there is an issue if someone, which most people now either vote early or vote by mail, if they're getting paid time off and they've already done that, I don't think that's fair to the employees that are using it for the intended purpose. And so I don't know if anybody's thought about a way to sort of account for those differences.
Do you conclude, Commissioner? Oh, yeah, that mic's off, okay. Commissioner Sampson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I agree, I think it's the goal is to get people to vote, but I think trying to check if they voted or not becomes I mean, you almost have to hire, that takes a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of employee time to be able to do that. I mean, if we have to trust our workers at some point, they're telling us the right thing and they're not lying to us. I think vast majority of our workers will tell the truth when it comes to that. So I think it would create a lot of work to create a system like that. I also think that we talk about those other elections, but I also think if there is a special election in the city, that should also be included in that as well.
Commissioner Chestnut?
Yes, since most people vote, now that I'm thinking about it, most people vote during early voting. I would not be opposed to allowing them the 1 to 2 hours off for early voting. And generally, when people vote, they come back with their little sticker or some indication that they voted. But I think that what we want to do is to encourage participation. So if it's early voting or during on the election day, I would not have a problem with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Huesmacher.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll put a motion on the floor that we move forward with option 3 of 1 to 2 hours for the following elections. It'd be either on election day or early voting, for presidential primary elections, for the normal primary elections, for I guess the normal November general election, and then also for any special election that may be happening within the city limits.
Second.
So for voting and the early voting period.
Correct.
I didn't get to say my comment. Busy taking notes. Okay, so I agree that it would be difficult to prove if someone has voted other than like a sticker, but if I get mine by vote by mail, it's like, here I go, but did I vote? I kind of agree with the mayor in that I do want, I want our folks to have that kind of freedom to go do something else with that 2 hours if they want to, because I think a larger goal was civic engagement. If you work for the city, you should be ideally civically engaged because that is your job to some degree. I'm not going to disagree with the motion. I'll vote for it because I think it's better than not having any option. But I recognize the large financial impact of just giving people the day off to go knock on doors or canvass. Mr. Huffner, do you guys have an estimate for that, a financial estimate for that option 3? Just like on one day, option 1 to 2 hours?
That would be an easy number to get for you.
I think I'd like to see that before once it comes back up to the regular commission meeting for any vote, to have that kind of number. And I think it would vary based on who it is we're giving that 1 to 2 hours off.
Would this need to come back, Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem, to a regular meeting?
No, I just want the information whenever.
Oh, just bring it back. Okay.
Yeah,
That
whenever
information.
we kind of finalize everything and put a bow on it, I'd like to. Will I be here? We don't have any other further action?
Yeah, this is it.
Oh, because it's internal. You know, then I'd just like to see the number at some point, if you could, it's fine.
Absolutely.
If I could just get that to you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it would end here, but it's internal, so yeah. Okay. In that case, do we have any members of the the public who would like to comment? Going once. Going, and that's enough. Okay, in that case, I guess we move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. I'm in favor. I'm sorry for that.
Thank you. So that's 5 to 0.
Okay.
And now back to our regularly scheduled agenda. Thank you, Ms. Daphner.
Thank you.
So Office of Ombudsman. Ms. Spicer.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. I am Morgan Spicer, and I am the Interim Policy Oversight Administrator, and I'm here to present our research on an Office of the Ombudsman. And you can go ahead and go to the second slide. Thank you. So this is just a reminder of how we got here in our policy process. So phase 1 is research and idea formulation. This actually resulted in 2 reports on this topic, both of which are in your backup. We had an original report a couple of years ago, just on the general ombudsman structure and purpose, and then we wrote a supplemental report in the last couple of months on an organizational ombudsman and their usage in local government. And then, of course, we're currently in phase 2, which is GPC consideration. And you can go to the next slide, please. So this is just an overview of what we'll be talking about. We'll look at what an ombudsman is and their role. We'll look at the different structures that can be created within an ombudsman office, the types of ombuds on the federal, state, and local level. Then we'll look at some cities that have ombuds offices, and we'll wrap up with some discussion points or potential challenges moving forward. So first, what is an ombudsman? An ombudsman, which is also frequently referred to as an ombud, ombuds, or ombudsperson, typically serves as an independent oversight agency for municipalities to provide neighbors and potentially also community builders with a confidential avenue to address complaints or resolve questions. The office may provide mediation, information, or investigation services to resolve the complaints and concerns of neighbors or employees. The office can also propose policy and procedural changes when issues within the municipality are identified by an office analysis of complaints. Ultimately, the goal of these offices is generally to find parts of the government that are not working well for neighbors with an eye towards increasing government efficiency and decreasing neighbor complaints. Typically, ombud offices are very generalized and provide an independent and impartial complaint resolution or information gathering mechanism for problems and questions related to city administration. However, municipalities can also make ombud offices specific to certain programs or departments if that is identified as a need. Next slide, please. So one of the key considerations when creating an office of an ombudsman is how it will be structured in order to ensure efficiency, trust, and independence. One of these structures is the executive ombudsman, which is accountable to an executive member of the municipality. Typically, under these systems, the executive has full authority over the appointment of the ombud rather than the office being its own independent legislative agency. In Gainesville, an executive ombud would need to be housed under a charter officer, and which charter officer that office would be housed under would be a potential point for further discussion. The main advantage to this executive system is that it is significantly easier to create and that it would not require a charter amendment or any additional legislation. It generally makes conflict between the ombud and city staff less likely, and it also ensures that the ombud has access to equitable city resources and officials. However, executive ombuds can be perceived as being biased towards the government in conflicts between staff and neighbors, and the office may be more subject to political motives if not established in a neutral and independent way. Next slide, please. The other common ombud structure is a legislative ombudsman, which, as the name implies, is an independent legislative agency appointed by the legislature of the jurisdiction, and it has jurisdiction over all executive administrative agencies. This is considered the more classic ombudsman style, however, it's also significantly more common in larger cities. The main advantage to this structure is that it may be easier to gather public trust in the office, as there is not a risk that the public may feel that if they have a complaint against the executive office the ombud is housed under, that they may experience some level of impartiality. Additionally, official legislative codification of the office can help make its purpose very clear to neighbors. However, this may result in the creation of another charter office, which of course is a time-consuming process that requires voter approval. And additionally, conflict between a legislative ombud and city staff may be more common if city officials feel that the ombud is a potential liability to their office. Next slide, please. Ombud offices are fairly common at the state and federal level. Many federal departments and agencies have ombudsmen to help facilitate communication between the agency and the groups that they serve. Additionally, several states have ombuds dedicated to investigating complaints posed against agencies. In Florida, we don't have a statewide ombud, but we do have a long-term care ombudsperson whose duty is to assist residents of nursing homes. Ombuds on the municipal level do tend to be more common in larger cities and are generally organizational ombudsmen, which I'll define fully in the next slide, but generally they assist with conflict and complaint resolution. However, there are several examples of municipalities creating more specialized ombudsmen that serve more specific departments or goals, such as helping residents navigate city services. Next slide, please. As mentioned previously, the more common type of ombudsman on the local level is an organizational ombud. This is an individual who serves as a designated neutral within an organization to provide conflict resolution and problem-solving services to members of the organization, which would be an internal ombudsman, or to clients and customers of the organization, which would be an external ombudsman. An organizational ombudsman provides confidential, informal, independent, and impartial assistance to individuals through dispute resolution and problem-solving methods such as conflict coaching, mediation, facilitation, and shuttle diplomacy. They do not advocate for individuals, groups, or entities, but rather for the principles of fairness and equity within the provision of municipal services. Additionally, the organizational ombudsman typically does not play a role in formal processes, investigate problems brought to the office's attention, or represent any specific side in a dispute. Next slide, please. So these are some examples of cities that do have ombuds people. We'll look at Coral Gables and Jacksonville within Florida. Then we'll also look at Anchorage, Alaska, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Seattle, Washington, and Austin, Texas. As we'll discuss, some of these ombud offices are exclusively for residents of the municipality, like Coral Gables and Anchorage. Some are exclusively for municipal employees and contractors, like Jacksonville, Seattle, and Austin. And some are for both, like Chapel Hill. Next slide, please. Our first example is Coral Gables, which has an executively created ombudsman for residents and small business owners. The ombudsman falls under the control of the city manager's office and was established to help alleviate some of the responsibilities of the city manager and the city commission, who would frequently be approached by neighbors with questions and concerns regarding city services. The role of this office is to assist residents and small business owners with questions and concerns regarding permits, building codes, special requirements, and other administrative processes. The goal is to facilitate and find solutions for residents and business owners attempting to navigate city functions and local bureaucracies. Jacksonville's Office of Ombudsman was established through city ordinance to promote contractual fairness, neutrality, and administrative accountability through impartial investigations and mediation of complaints. The office is housed under the city's procurement division and helps manage contract disputes, analyze complaints, utilize mediation to facilitate communication, prepare settlements agreements, and review and revise policies. This office is intended for city employees, along with participating independent authorities and the local vendor community to ensure timely resolution of issues related to contractual compliance. Anchorage, Alaska is an example of a legislative ombudsman that is empowered to investigate the acts of municipal agencies within Anchorage and the Anchorage School District due to the city-county consolidated government there. The office is available to the public and is responsible to the Anchorage legislature, who select the ombudsman. The office is able to recommend changes towards the goals of safeguarding the rights of persons and of promoting higher standards of competency, efficiency, and equity in the provision of municipal services. Next slide, please. Chapel Hill's Ombuds Office is an executive ombud under the city manager's office, and it helps residents, visitors, and town employees navigate their experience of living and working in Chapel Hill. The office does not take sides in disputes, conduct formal investigations, offer legal advice, or make any decisions for the individuals they are assisting. Instead, the office helps neighbors and employees role-play through situations. They provide training on issues along with information and referrals regarding city services. They help to analyze complex problems within the city. They help neighbors get explanations of city policies, and they help neighbors address issues at the most appropriate level. In the first 5 years of the office opening, they met with approximately 83% of city employees and 365 community stakeholders. Most meetings are regarding interpersonal conflicts, but many are also about access to resources, navigating changes, and professional development. Seattle is an example of an ombuds office that is exclusively for city employees. Their Office of the Employee Ombud is a confidential, informal, and independent resource that serves the City of Seattle employees to empower individuals and teams to transform conflict into work and learning. The office assists individuals towards the resolution of concerns on a confidential and informal basis and supports procedures that advance the goal of a fair conflict management system. The OEO in Seattle is independent from any other department within the city, and the director is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council for a renewable term of 4 years. The director can be removed for violation of city policy or for violations of the standards of practice by the International Ombudsman Association. Next slide, please. And then the last example that we'll talk about is Austin, Texas. So Austin's voluntary alternative dispute resolution process is coordinated by the City of Austin Ombudsperson, which is housed in the Labor Relations Office under the city manager. ADR is an informal process to assist in the voluntary resolution of disciplinary probations, suspensions, demotions, discharges, or denials of promotion. When an employee files a notice of appeal for one of these personnel actions, they can select the ADR process to help resolve the concern. The ombudsperson then uses a variety of methods for dispute resolution, including mediation, mediated conflict, and facilitation information sharing. Next slide, please. And so for this last substantive slide here, I just wanted to point out a few things that would likely need to be discussed or identified if you all want to move forward with a potential ombudsman office. The first is, of course, what types of services this office would provide. So as this has been discussed, you can see that the term ombudsman is generally quite broad and can mean a lot of different things. And so determining the specific role of an ombudsman is important to help ensure, one, that the cities provided by the office are not already covered through existing services, and also that it's clear to neighbors what services this office can provide. So, for example, many professional development, conflict resolution, and investigative services may already exist under the city manager and human resources, or the city auditor, or the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and so we want to make sure that neighbors know that they're going to the correct office if they have these types of concerns. And then, of course, what follows that is where this office would be housed, and which charter officer it would be housed under if you choose to pursue an executive ombudsman or if you choose to pursue a legislative ombudsman. And then lastly, just regardless of the answers to the first two questions, an important element of success for these offices is ensuring both neighbor and staff trust in the independence and impartiality of the office. Next slide. And then just to wrap it up, this is just a reminder of our policy process and the next phases. So phase 3 is timeline development. So if you all want to move forward in the policy process, a cross-departmental working group would be convened to provide a timeline and resource estimate in phase 3. Then phase 4, that working group continues their work for a full proposal that includes a risk assessment, an equity analysis, and a legal analysis. That proposal will then return to the General Policy Committee in phase 5. And then, of course, phase 6 would be implementation if the General Policy Committee chooses to do so. And so that is what I have for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Ms. Martin. Commissioner Hernandez, I believe you were first.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. In general, I'm unsupportive of this, and I think at some point, I think it'll be a good idea for the city. My biggest concern is the reoccurring cost, and we have a tight budget year this year, and there's a lot of priorities that are most likely be unfunded when we get there, and kind of where do we put this in terms of the priority. Just in today's meeting, I mean, we have the RTS app and the issues with that, which would take funding to deal with, and then also we're talking about lighting and public safety and vegetation trimming, and those are dollars that are needed for us to address those kind of level of service. And to me, I think that's where we're allocating dollars. I think that's where we have more immediate need. I think we haven't funded kind of our core infrastructure and core services enough, and I think we need to settle that down before we start expanding. I think in next commission, and then I think it's something to keep on mind for future commissions. But right now, it's just the budget and where we allocate things. I don't know if we have the funds to move forward at this time. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Chestnut?
Thank you. To me, this seems like a solution in search of a problem. And I say that because you all are to be commended, along with staff, in your creating My GNV. It seems to me My GNV answers many of these issues. I think the mayor last week talked about just being able to enter into his telephone a street light that was out somewhere. But I think we're able to get to citizens' issues very quickly through My GNV. Then I see it as a true duplication. We have an equity office, and the equity office deals with internal as well as external issues. When we look at Chapel Hill, 85% of Chapel Hill's complaints were from within staff. We don't have that here. If you talk to the equity office, I think our complaints are very low from external as well as internal. And so so we have very low referrals. I think I would rather utilize the resources we have now, My GMV, Human Resources, and the auditor, and the Office of Inclusion and Equity, rather than creating a new position. And I'm very concerned about the recurring cost. The recurring cost of this and its duplication. I have one question, Morgan, before I relinquish time. What year was Chapel Hill created?
I would have to check. It should be in the report.
Yeah, I just didn't see it. You can get it to me later. You can get it to me.
Okay, yes, I'll get
Okay,
to it.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Real quick, I kind of forgot this because I don't normally do this job. I do think we had a supplemental presentation from one of our neighbors who brought the idea forward. Mr. Mayor, do you mind if we give Mr. Cohen that time to give what he wanted to show us as one of our neighbors?
No, I appreciate hearing from him, thank you.
Thank you, and you'll be next. Mr. Cohen, welcome.
Thank you. A very brief PowerPoint, and I've listened carefully to what was said today. Let's go, the option for options. And the reason why that title is there is an ombuds does two things, has a wonderful Rolodex and gives options. And the last slide will say why that's important. Next one, please. The primary duties of an organizational ombudsman, and what I'm proposing is an organizational ombudsman. I don't think the ombudsman should deal with internal affairs, except with one exception, which we'll get to, and the ombudsman is for the citizens to approach the city. I'll give an example of one ombudsman who I know, Tony Cilio in Coral Gables, is one that Morgan included in your excellent report. He reports to the city manager and only deals with one topic, is 90%. He is a contractor and he deals with developers and citizens and all the issues that arise. 10 years ago, I was asked by the then mayor to do a presentation on ombudsman. I was chairing the city plan board, and I saw a lot of the frustration folks were feeling with trying to develop with permits, comprehensive plan, land use changes, and I suggested a narrow focus ombudsman for that. The city commission then did a pilot program. Problem is no one knew about it. Didn't go very far. So an ombudsman, I'm suggesting, would be an organizational ombudsman, and the ombudsman does two things. Not only deals with issues of conflicts, but the ombudsman then reports to the city commission and gives them, what are we seeing? What are the systemic issues? Commissioner Chestnut pointed out correctly that some of these issues are resolved in our app, GNV. It works well. I called in last Sunday a pothole. Monday morning it was filled. So your point is well taken, which we'll get to in a minute, why that helps actually make an ombudsman work. Let's go to the next slide, please. There's an International Ombudsman Association. I'm a certified ombudsman. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but there are reasons for this. It resolves some of the issues that Morgan brought up. There's only one certified ombudsman in northern Florida, and I know him well. Okay, it's me. Anyway, sorry about that. And I've done this for 20 years for a nonprofit, so I know how this works. The ombudsman is independent. It doesn't need to have a charter office. If an ombudsman is certified, and in cities like Chapel Hill, they require the ombudsman to be certified. By being certified, the ombudsman has a vow, an ethics code of independence. I've only given a short piece of the code here. The code is a full pages of the ethics of an ombudsman. Second, an ombudsman must be impartial and not involved in policy decisions. Third, it's highly confidential. Next slide. In some cases, the ombudsman will also be a mediator. Okay, nice guy, Bob. I'm a mediator. A mediator who's certified by the Supreme Court of Florida is bound by confidentiality, bound by neutrality, and bound by impartiality. So there's a good overlap here. Next slide, please. And I only have a few slides. Question is where to place the office. Well, I've looked at this carefully. I've talked to our auditor, I've talked to our city manager, and I've talked to equity and inclusion. And I'm also been doing, I think, the majority, or at least a lot of the mediations that come into the Office of Equity and Inclusion. So I'm familiar with it. That is the best place to put it. Here's why. And this gets back to the issue that Commissioner Hayes Santos raised, cost. The Office of Equity and Inclusion already has an intake staff. People call up. They say, I got a complaint. I just got stopped by the cops and it was because of my race or something. They already are referring that to the Internal Affairs or the Police Advisory Board. They're already doing that. They already have the staff and the capacity to do the initial intake. Zero cost to the city, and they have the capacity. So being in that office has another advantage. That office also is bound by confidentiality, but not so tightly wound up in confidential issues like the auditor might have to deal with. The auditor has other considerations. But what goes through that office has a certain confidentiality. Plus, it's not in City Hall. You don't want the Ombudsman's office in City Hall because that confidentiality is then broken, but who's walking in and out? It's nice to be a little bit removed. Let's go on the next slide. We're almost done here. How to begin? Well, Morgan outlined the complex process of getting things approved in the city. Well, I live by it's always easier to ask forgiveness and permission. And the way to do this is just do a pilot program, and other cities have done it. A small pilot program. Does it solve a problem? Does it save us more money than it costs? We're only going to deal with external visitors, and sometimes, I mentioned before, sometimes it'll be internal matters. I've done this for the mayor, for the police department, so I know occasionally on internal affairs, a mediator's needed. This office could supply those mediators. Now, there is a cadre of mediators that is available for free, certified and qualified, so no money. That comes from the small claims court. When I became a mediator, for 2 years, I mediated cases in small claims court just to learn how to do it some 20 years ago. Those and the people I worked with are people like Perry McGriff was there, the former CEO of Shands. I mean, people who have some life experience. And these mediators are dying to do volunteer work. They're available. And they're back in court now. And they're trained and certified. So this ombudsman office could coordinate that. Again, very little money spent. The ombudsman also, and the International Ombudsman Association changed their standards 2 years ago. And one of the standards they changed is that the ombudsman, they added a section of what an ombudsman's duties are, and it's to report to the organization systemic concerns. This is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing. Ombudsmans go out to the community, the neighborhood groups, the crime watch groups, and say, I'm here, if you need me, I'm your face, I'm going to help. Now the issue is raised, isn't this what commissioners do? Don't commissioners do constituent services? Help, I got a pothole, I got this, I got that problem. Yes and no. First, getting an appointment with a commissioner, they're busy, they're in endless meetings. One time I was asked to run for city commission. I said, Adrian knows this well, I said, hell no, I don't want to have death by 1,000 meetings. And so I applaud all of you for what you're doing. But it's a job that's a full-time job that sadly pays half-time or less. That's another matter. On the Charter Review Commission, we looked back and forth on it. But the point is, city commissioners often don't have time to deal. Plus, city commissioners have different political persuasions, and some citizens get intimidated by it. So this is the two-way street the ombudsman does. One way is city commissioners can say, hey, you got this problem, I think the ombudsman has time, they're going to hear you, and they're going to hear you right away. But it goes the other way. Citizens come to the ombudsman. I really think that the downtown development plans are really good, or they're really bad, or whatever. The ombudsman then sends the citizens to the city commissioner, and a lot of people I know don't even know how to approach a city commissioner. Here's how you set up an appointment. This is what you do. So that makes a two-way street. Next slide, please. Cost. Well, we're going to use existing staff to screen. Right now, the mediators in the Office of Equity and Inclusion are contracted. We would begin as a half-time contract position just for the sake of a pilot program to see if it really saves costs. Again, our city commissioners do not have much staff. And would this actually alleviate some of their workload, alleviate some of the staff there? At the end of the day, would it be cost neutral? I strongly suspect it would be. A pilot program for a very small amount of money could tell us that. And the next slide, please. This is the most important slide. We have our pressure cooker. What does a ombudsman do? An ombudsman is the safety valve on the pressure cooker. All of you know, between all the blogs and Facebooks and everything out there, there's a lot of buzz. The ombudsman lives by one word, the T word, trust. Neutral, impartial, and the ombudsman has to demonstrate it. And in that way, the ombudsman can reduce some of the tension that the city feels, some of the tension you feel at city commission meetings, and give that safety valve. And I think it can be done on an almost, I believe, on a cost-neutral basis. I'm suggesting it as a pilot. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. If there are any questions from me, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. I think we're going to go back to the mayor, but stay close. Mr. Mayor? If you are speaking, you are muted.
All right, thank you. It was good to hear from Mr. Cohen and a little perspective on his experience. First of all, I think that there is very little downside to putting a pilot out there just to see how it works and see if there is an improvement in communication and the efficacy that our neighbors experience in interacting with their government. I've come at this from a little different perspective, and it has more to do with the internal challenges that we have had historically. In my 6 years in the mayor's seat, I have had so many different occurrences of people coming to me with issues, whether they be with the organization or with individuals in the organization, expecting me to be able to do something about it. I've had groups of employees come to me about safety concerns. I've had charter officers come to me with concerns about commissioners. I've had commissioners come to me with concerns about charter officers. I've had charter officers come to me with concerns about other charter officers. I've had neighbors come to me with concerns about all of the above. And the job description of the mayor of the city of Gainesville doesn't say anything about being able to work through conflict resolution within staff, to effectively conduct mediations. The position is also severely limited in any ability to do any of those things because of the sunshine law and the strict limitations that imposes. And it's also not really appropriate because the mayor is an individual. I can no better speak for the commission on any of those issues than any other. And a public meeting to resolve those issues is obviously the absolute least effective way to move towards resolution and improvement, whether it's in a one-on-one disagreement or whether it's more organizational or systemic. And so I feel like there needs to be a neutral third party with specific professional training and experience accreditation that can do the intake for these kinds of disagreements and work towards a lasting and meaningful resolution. I don't know how else to accomplish that. And I'm thankful because we are right now in a moment of relative peace and mutual cooperation and collaboration. But that has not been my experience overall. And I don't know what previous mayors experienced. I don't know if those mayors had people coming to them consistently asking for them to intervene or not. But I know my experience, and it has been a very difficult part of the job because I'm not empowered to do so, and I don't necessarily have the skill set or training, professional training, to do so, even if I did have the authority. So I think that's something we need to seriously consider as our city continues to grow and become more complex. As you all know, we have a very complex charter arrangement anyway, more so than any other city. I think we're going to continue facing these challenges. And if there's another way to do it outside the ombudsman, I'm happy to hear those ideas as well. I have not seen these types of conflicts resolved through a normal HR process. And so that's why I'm trying to look towards other options with this. So I know that's a little beyond the scope of what Mr. Cohen suggested, but I do think at least starting with the pilot to handle external complaints or just even neighbor assistance and helping people be better connected and engaged with the people and the processes of their government does have value. And then I think we can look and ask a question, and by we I mean somebody else 6 months, a year down the road can ask, is this working? Is there a way for us to expand this to serve even more people more effectively? Or is this something that really hasn't worked as we hoped, and let's look for other options? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go to Commissioner Ward because I think he's been waiting a while here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. So I would absolutely not want to make a position like this a charter officer, where we have lots of charter officers. I would not want to do that. I don't think we have the votes to add the position, but I am interested in I can see potential for it, let me say that. Our neighbors experience different things from different commissioners and different commissions. Some commissioners are really good at constituent services. Some just, it's not what they bring to the table, brought to the table. Craig Carter, for instance, was a monster at constituent service. I mean, he was really good at that. Other commissioners in the past have just not, it hasn't been their thing. And if you, as a neighbor, come to your commissioner and it's not their thing, they may be a really good commissioner otherwise, but if constituent services isn't what they do, then you leave their office without an answer. And that concerns me. What we do the services that we offer as a city are so varied and complex that it's hard for all of us, for anybody, to really have a grasp on where to send somebody, because we get lots of different questions. If the neighbor goes to the city manager's office and it happens to be a GRU question, then you had to send them across the road to GRU or vice versa. And I've gone through that as well, and you all probably have too. I've got a watery backyard. I'm pretty sure it's the city's problem, but I don't know, what part of the city to go to. So I can see a value to this. Y'all are absolutely right. that we're coming on a tight budget year. And it's the second year of a two-year budget. So I would be interested if there were opportunity to find a pilot funding through unfilled positions or something like that, which requires more work, I know, but that's probably the only avenue I could see toward getting anything done, certainly today. But I absolutely hear your concerns, all the different concerns about it may not be the right time for it. I'm hopeful that the things that the mayor brought up are in large measure past us, and that if we did have a position like this, they would not spend all their time trying to mitigate the various things that he listed. But I do think that there has to be a way to help people, whether it's digitally on our website or something, to help people get their question answered. And we're missing some of that now. And it primarily is because we do so many different things. You know, if all we did was buses and water and wastewater, you know, we could get after that. But we offer all the services the city offers. And it's hard to know exactly where to send today's question or this hour's question. So that's my thought is that perhaps, if not for this coming year's budget, that for some future budget, if we could try to find that out of unfilled positions, or maybe positions that are not going to be filled. Just a thought. Thank you. I don't think that's particularly helpful, but those are my thoughts.
So before we go around again, just want to offer my thoughts. So I like the idea. I also want our budget to not be what it currently is. I don't dislike the idea of a pilot. However, I'd rather try something else first. And in my opinion, I don't think anyone disagrees with this. My GMV does a lot of this, much better than we could, because the computer system automatically knows who to send things to. I may not know who to call for a pothole. I usually ask Mr. Mann, and he says, not my job, but I'll get it to the right person. The machine already
Phil
knows.
never tells me it's not his job. He always says, I'll take care of it.
He does, but he's not the one doing it.
He does.
So he just knows how to reroute it, which is great, because I don't know where to go.
Right.
So like the app does a lot of those external things. I think that one thing we haven't done really well, and I think Mr. Cohen even said this about the original pilot, it's not advertised very well. If the average bear has a problem, they'll be, I'm gonna go to City Hall. So they just call our office anyway. They don't know we have an app. If that is more apparent, more accessible in the terms of like visibility, I think that handles quite a few of the issues. It captures more of those, rather than the emails we get. And sometimes even before we read them, the assistants have already said, thank you for your email, we've put in a ticket request through my GMV, it will get handled. I think what we don't do very well, which is something we should look into, is the, at the end process, contacting the neighbor saying, was that actually fixed for you? I've had some conversations with staff about that, like that is potentially an area for improvement, just double check, was that solved? Because we know through our system, what have you, yep, tick, we did the thing, but did that actually solve the problem for the neighbor? I think that could be one area of improvement, which doesn't necessarily have a huge cost, it's more of a review. But for the other thing, as the mayor was mentioning, those are harder. And yeah, there's no one person who's in charge of that, because the dynamics of, I can count 13 people, are difficult. And then when you get further into the organization, it's even trickier. But I think I was speaking with the manager, and there was a similar contract option. And I'm going to ask if you don't mind the option out of, is it Cincinnati? That there is an option to kind of contract out for specific issues. Like, we've reached a tier that nothing else can really handle. Now we will contract it out. And I don't dislike that concept. It's kind of on call as you need it. You don't pay for it unless you use it. And therefore we do have it, because most things should be getting captured by the app or HR or the EO's office. But the mayor's right, there are some things nobody can actually handle, whether for neutrality reasons, for confidentiality reasons. So, I think, Madam Manager, you had some marks
Sure.
on that.
There is always room for improvement. I've discussed this with staff, and clearly, I think within the GG space, we do a lot of responding to concerns and complaints, and we have a lot of pieces that feed into that. And collectively, I would say we are responsive. But in terms of general coordination, there is room for improvement there, because we do have the pieces in place, depending on whether it is an external, reaction or response, or something that is internal, employee-based. We took a look at some cities. Cincinnati was one of them. Only to the concerns and complaints that rose to a level of not being able to be addressed by the existing internal staff, they had a professional services agreement where there was a professional, ombudsman, someone on the outside, who took those complaints and addressed them in that independent matter. But those were complaints that rose to a certain level. But again, just speaking to it, and GRU is GRU, we're all city, complaints come in regardless of where we are. I believe we do have all the components. I think the general coordination is probably what is lacking. If we took a look at, honestly, at what we're doing, we have My GNV, we have liaisons to the My GNV around departments, we have government and community relations. I know Yvette Carter, I'm speaking to her specifically because she served this role in GRU as well as on the GG side, on both now, does a lot of that. But within the police department, they have their own unit. I mean, there are lots of things going on right now within the city that addresses this. So there are resources out there. That complete loop that you talked about in terms of the evaluation of whether a citizen has actually been satisfied in terms of their concern or not, is lacking. It's not that it doesn't happen in instances, but in terms of being a part of a programmatic approach, it's not. And so again, room for improvement. Not prepared to say whether ombuds in the sense of whether it's legislative or executive is the right way to go. However, always being concerned about our citizens' complaints, concerns, whether it's coming from internal or whether it's coming from the outside, is critical. It's a focus. I know it's what commissioners are constantly concerned about based on constituent services and connecting. So what I can say is Cincinnati, yes, they did it from an external point of view, but only for concerns that kicked up at a certain level. For us, being honest, room for improvement, always, but I think a lot of it is happening. A lot of the responsiveness is in fact connecting with our neighbors.
Thank you, Madam Manager. So to wrap up, and then I'll go, because I think all of you re-raised your hands. We are admittedly in an awkward position of transition. 4 of our charters are interim, but they seem to be working really well together. 4 of our seats are up for re-election because they are termed out. Internally, the organization is making a lot of changes, whether from our organizational culture evaluation and the changes we are bringing there internally. There are a lot of moving parts currently on how to better the organization and how we serve our neighbors. I would like to see how that settles. And if there's still room for something else in 6 months, in a year, I would like to see this again. But I think I want to see how our charters and all of those recommended changes kind of settle and cement, and this is the final form. To then reevaluate, are we still having these issues of, I don't know how to contact the city, I don't know where to go, we don't have the full circle review. Like, I would prefer to wait and see until all of that's settled. Because we're making a lot of changes already to then throw in another when these haven't finished. That would be my preference. I don't dislike the idea. I do think we need, at some point, at some level, a neutral third party to review things. But I'd rather see how we can improve what we're already in the process of improving, rather than go ahead right now with a pilot. That's it. I think Commissioner Jacintos and Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. To the My GNV app, I think that's like a low-hanging fruit. I mean, dealing with, if our ombudsman's having to deal with like pothole issues and we're failing, I think in general, like it really, which should be for larger, complex issues, and I think that sometimes gets lost sometimes. As far as like a pilot, pilots sometimes, many times, they actually are harder to do than just running a normal office because you have to come up with the whole idea. It takes an incredible amount of just resources, maybe already on staff, but there is resources on it. I guess I would like, what I like to consider is us to not consider it in the FY 2023 budget, but consider it as the commission in FY 2024 to say that we discuss this and that kind of consider it at that time as that's the direction they would like to go. So I would move that we ask the commission to consider ombudsman pilot in the 2024 budget.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Chestnut, I believe you were next.
Yes. Chapel Hill is a city that has a contract ombudsman. I'm intrigued by what the mayor said about a 6-month trial. I would be interested in looking at that. However, Mr. Cohen suggested placing this in equity and inclusion. Well, I would not support that, and here's why. We have given Jenny to the inclusion office, and that is a tremendous load. More than we really realize. That's a tremendous load. I would not support putting it in human resources where we have 43 vacancies. They don't have the staff.
Not 43.
No, not 43.
Our office of 12.
Oh, I thought I heard 43 somewhere. Oh, no wonder your eyes feels that way.
We have a 50% vacancy, so 6 on 6.
It's okay. Somewhere I heard 43.
Just improve the
We have 43 vacancies somewhere.
Okay, I'll take it back. I'll take it back. Here's the problem. We have vacancies. And I wouldn't want to put it in human resources. However, I might consider putting it with the city auditor who could develop it and look at it there. But I think we have too much right now to look at trying to implement this or put it someplace, and our staff is already taxed. Would be my concern. Once we get past the 43 vacancies.
We have them somewhere. Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Ward, then I guess we will take this to the, you'll hear the piano music, right? Okay. Okay.
No, it's you.
Just checking, it could be. So I guess we will go to public comment. Did anyone sign up? Okay. You want them to sign up?
There's public comments.
Okay, well, then, come on up, Ms. Beatty. Really quick though, if anyone does want to, for the sake of our staff and making it easier, we do have these sign-up slips here. I think they will be moved further to y'all in a second, but it makes it easier for our clerk staff. Ms. Beatty.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. Hope to be a little lenient with time, because this was all new. I was listening to some of it while I was driving and listening to you, so ordinarily I would be better prepared. I hope there's another time, but, I really liked, Commissioner Sacco, that you said try something else. And I think that a lot of the things that you're perceiving as problems, as somebody mentioned, Mr. Cohen, I think, said something about it's good to have a ombudsman because it's a position of trust and that. And I think part of the problem is a problem of the commission's own making and of commissions in the past several, probably most of this, the 2000s, certainly the last 15 years. Citizens that come before you really trying to work with you and acting as ombudsmen in a lot of cases trying to help other members of the public and try to help you with systems, as you know, aren't greeted with as if trying to be part of the team. And this goes back to probably 2004 that I can remember when he said, hey, let's talk. And so I would suggest, first of all, that there are 15 or 20 of us probably, and some of us more religiously attending the meetings and trying to talk to you, that really get iced out. I've heard the mayor in some of his presentations talk about community outreach and going out and get the community, and there are those people that come to all the meetings and, you know, they carry less weight with him because we're always saying the same thing. We're trying to get your attention. So one of the things I would suggest, it'd be nice to just really have a problem-solving session or sessions, because I think a lot of us who've been before you for years trying to get your attention, trying to say, please don't do this, you know, we can't afford it. Whatever, you're hurting the least able to afford it in our community the most, and we've been there, and I think you have a lot of people that could help you with solutions. I think part of your solutions are in your staffing. You've got all these empty positions when somebody comes to City Hall or calls. You know, you don't have the staff to cover it. Oh, they're out, or, you know, whatever. There aren't enough people, and you'd be better putting your money into hiring some more people, and, you know, below the top levels, you know, to be the coordinators for it. You've created so many different silos, and it's kind of like, I feel like it's divide and conquer.
Thank you,
And,
Ms. Beatty.
and you know, Mr. Cohen, who's a member of the public,
Ms.
got
Beatty,
a lot of time, and
No, well,
this
Mr.
is
Cohen
a
was
sample
Ms. Beatty,
of
I understand.
trying
He
to
was
problem solve with you.
The neighbor who helped us with the research, that's why he was allowed to give a presentation. I do have to be
Okay,
fair during
well,
public comment.
Look at this as maybe one of the things. I think you really need
Thank
to
you,
reach
Ms.
out
Beatty.
to those of us who have been trying
Thank
for
you, Ms. Beatty.
years
Ms.
to
Beatty,
help
Ms.
this
Beatty,
be a
I'm gonna
better
have to
city.
ask you to relate. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to make a comment?
May I make one more comment?
You've got 3 minutes as a
Oh, it'd be
normal
less
member
than
of the
that.
public for this.
Less than that. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, for listening. I thought that there was a lot of good feedback today. I understand the issue with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. They just do it. Another place, the auditor is a place, and another place, of course, is always the city manager's office, where a lot of cities do it. There was some troubles in the past of the trust issues with the city manager's office. Those trust issues have, at least my feedback in the community, evaporated. And so the city manager's office is another opportunity. One way to do it contractually, and the city already does this, is through the River Phoenix Center, because they have a lot of trained folks, and they could offer as a pilot a person to serve in a contract capacity to get it going. Again, an almost tiny sum of money, but the idea would be that, I know Mayor Pro Tem suggested maybe waiting for a budget year, but I'm thinking when we have the opportunity to really improve communication and release the pressure cooker, I'd like to see the city grab it and run with it, because having served in that capacity, I know how much the management always comes and says, especially at the International Ombudsman Conventions, the story after story is the manager says, thank God you guys are here, because our job now functions much more smoothly. So again, I suggest a pilot, but whatever your wisdom is, I fully respect, and I really appreciate the opportunity of you all listening and getting me to present something dear to my heart, conflict resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. So just one quick clarification. It is not unusual for this commission or commissions prior to collaborate with organizations or neighbors who then help us with their own expertise and present. That is not a special privilege we are granting to any particular person. It is a extra presentation alongside our staff so that we have a fuller picture with outside expertise that is volunteered to us. That is not a thing I have decided to do today on my own. It is a longstanding tradition that we have in this building. That said, anyone else for public comment? So we will close that. Any final comment up here? Cool, so we have a motion, and it's to ask the NESP Commission to reevaluate for fiscal year 24. All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, so that passes 4-1 with Mayor Poe in dissent. Thank you, everyone. We really do appreciate the research and the work. I like the research, just not the time. Thank you. I do believe next we have Community Health Improvement Plan. And Chief Dixon, with your permission, can I call a 2-minute recess for the health of our bladders? Because there are only 4 of us.
Yes. Do whatever you want.
Okay, so we are in recess for 2 minutes because we only have 4. Thank you. Chief Dixon?
No, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, all our commissioners, neighbors, and community builders. This is the presentation regarding our Community Health Improvement Plan. And certainly as our leadership strives to provide our neighbors and community builders with a healthy environment to live, work, and play, it was identified as a priority for policy action in the latest strategic plan to develop a health improvement plan. Assigned to GFR in 2021, we introduced best practices for plan development, and we were lucky to have a champion, of which Ms. Krista Ott, who's named as our fine life safety educator, took that charge, and she's going to carry forth our presentation today.
Again, good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commission. Thank you so much for allowing us to present today. Next slide. As Chief Dixon talked about, we're going to be talking about the Community Health Improvement Plan, covering the survey of how we got to our priority areas, what they mean, and what we hope moving forward. Next slide. What we began to notice was that many city departments and community partners were offering amazing programs already in Gainesville. Sometimes these options were unique, and sometimes they had some overlapping. Our hope is that the Community Health Improvement Plan will help to improve the coordination of programs to improve the overall health in the city of Gainesville. The plan will be overseen by the Community Health Director and the Community Health Board. The recommendation is that the Community Health Board include representatives of various community partners, city officials, as well as our neighbors. Currently, the Alachua County Community Health Improvement Plan is monitored by their CHIP steering committee with support from the Safety Net Collaboratives and Healthy Communities. I am happy to report that we are currently members of both of those groups. Members of our staff also currently sit on the working groups for the state's Community Health Improvement Plan, also known as the SHIP. Aligning ourselves with both of those groups will help us to ensure that our city CHIP aligns with both the counties and the states. Next slide, please. The CHIP is designed to be a plan to build community resiliency and self-sufficiency through collaboration with residents, healthcare providers, community organizations, and public health and human service agencies to improve the overall health here in Gainesville. Next slide, please. Designing a healthy community challenges individuals, communities, and professionals to work together to assess, address, and change both behaviors of the population of individuals and the conditions that affect their health. By connecting and leveraging these resources, the City of Gainesville helps to influence the environment to make healthy choices practical, acceptable, and accessible to all of our neighbors. Changing policies, systems, and/or environments in a community can help make a big impact with limited time and resources, as well as help address chronic health disease issues. Next slide, please. The Community Health Director is a position we are currently hiring for within GFR. The role of the Community Health Director is to coordinate activities, capture events, and measure benchmarks of successes while maintaining the CHIP documentation. Next slide, please. We acknowledge that the Community Health Improvement Plan is not only new, but is a work in progress. And if we did not acknowledge our community partners who helped with this project, we would be missing a great step. We are very grateful for everybody's contribution thus far and in the future. What we started with was a Community Health Improvement Needs Assessment Survey. We conducted this in October of last year. The survey ran for 1 month. We had 261 responses, and the survey was offered both online and in paper version. We were fortunate to collaborate with the City Communications Office to design and develop the survey using the Qualtrics program. It's important to note that we were able to receive responses from 10 out of 11 zip codes within Gainesville. The one zip code that we were missing was 32611, which is primarily UF institutional buildings. Again, without our community partners, distribution of this survey and assessing the needs within our community would have been much more difficult. So we are very fortunate for those partnerships that we already had established. When we look at the results of the community health survey, as well as the most important health problems to address that respondents identified that are shown on this slide, they also identified that the most harmful behaviors that they were worried about were alcohol abuse, drug abuse, distracted driving, not getting shots or vaccines, and also poor eating habits. Next slide, please. The next 3 slides will all reference responses that were given with a 12-month time frame reference that we asked the respondents for. They're broken down into responses that they were broken down into results from respondents who were caring for children under 18 in their home, which 41% of our respondents were, They are covering respondents themselves, how they felt, and also their responses for those who cared for seniors in our community, which was 13% of our respondents. What the survey results showed as a common factor across all three groups, though, was that in their restrictions or barriers to getting health care, dental care, and mental health care, they were having a problem not being able to afford it, they're having a problem scheduling appointments, and they're also having a problem not knowing where to go to get help. Next slide, please. In the last 12 months, 20 of our respondents also reported that they had food insecurities and that 5% of them had their utilities shut off. Next slide, please. The cost of care, as well as limited care resources, were of top concerns for our respondents and our neighbors that were caring for aging neighbors. Next slide, please. From the Community Health Assessment Survey results, we identified 4 main priority areas. They align with 4 out of the 6 priority areas for the SHIP. Next slide, please. The 2 priority areas in the SHIP that are not specifically identified within the CHIP are number 1 and number 4. That being said, many of the objectives that we have in the CHIP 4 priority areas also have objectives that cover child and maternal health. As we proceed through the next several slides where we look at the priority areas themselves, it's important to note that while GFR took lead on this project, it is not a GFR-centric plan. All of the objectives within the priority areas are currently being worked on and will be achieved by all of our internal and external stakeholders. We are forever grateful for their continued support and coordination. Next slide, please. Priority area number 1, mental wellness. There's a strong focus on program initiatives such as the CRP, or Community Resource Paramedicine's Overdose Recidivism Program, GPD's Co-Responder Program, and the Parks and Recreation Cultural Affairs Holiday Lights Program. Next slide, please. In priority area number 2, safe mobility for all, there's a large focus on walking and biking safety, with many of those efforts spearheaded by the city's Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. Priority area number 3, healthy lifestyles, focuses on increasing physical activity opportunities for our neighbors, as well as healthy food options and medication take-back events. Next slide, please. In priority area number 4, social determinants of health and chronic disease management, the Department of Transportation, GFR, have had the opportunity to partner heavily on creatively increasing access for transportation options for all of our neighbors. Next slide, please. The overall CHIP goals 1 and 2 are assigned directly to the Community Health Director to champion. Next slide, please. We know that the best laid plans have to have consistent follow-up and reassessments done to ensure that the tasks are being completed and that the plan is still meeting the needs of our community and of our neighbors. In Annex A, in the CHIP, that is the working document that can be easily and readily updated in real time as far as accomplishments and benchmarks go. The current CHIP priority areas 1 through 4 were developed as a guiding force for the CHIP for years 2022 through 2024. We know that as our community grows, our neighbors change, and other health concerns arise, those priority areas may need to be adjusted. As a result, a new community health needs assessment survey will be conducted and focus group meetings will be held by the Community Health Director in 2025 to establish new CHIP priority areas and objectives for 2026 through 2030. Next slide, please. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, we thank you so much again for your continued support for helping us meet the needs of our neighbors where they are. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you to really everyone who works on this. I'm going to jump ahead in front of all of you. Everything you said I love. I'm really excited that we have that community health director now. Has that been hired or is the position up?
No, ma'am. We're in the process, and the first thing that we want to stress is that this is not the end. This is actually the first step. And as one of the things Krista stressed is that The model that the county uses with their multiple work groups. This is where we'd be looking for some conversation, but it starts with the hiring of that, the health director, to provide that guidance for us. But we believe this is the work that, like I said, she was the tip of the spear, Krista was, but it was a team effort. And it was so many good things being done in the city, and again, grateful for the partnership in bringing this forward.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Krista. Again, I'm excited to see where we go.
Thank you, we are as well.
Any comments, Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you all for all your work on this and for the presentation. This is a thing we've been talking about since the pandemic started, and before in various ways, but it really became obvious that we were, because public health has not traditionally been the city's job, we were not prepared for lots of things, just because we hadn't needed to be before. So to see this response and to see it come together the way it is really gratifying. It's something that we had asked for as a commission over the last 2.5 years to start working toward. And I feel like future commissions are really going to be able to depend on this. The people who live in our city are going to be able to depend on it, and I'm really excited for the work you all have done. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor? No hands? No hands? Okay, cool. Well, we don't really have action other than to say thank you and to let you get to work.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you. And you guys mentioned earlier succession planning. So you'll see I always have members of my team. She was nervous about doing, but I actually think Krista did an outstanding job, and I'm proud of that as the chief.
Yeah, good job.
She did. And Chief, you're on deck again.
Yes, ma'am. And so with me, of course, I have other members of my team as we move forward into the next program. We'll give you an update. My statistician back there in the form of Chief Hillhouse, as well as my note taker and Chief Sutton. So are we ready with, once we get the slide deck up? No, this is the next one. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we are now covering public safety update presentation. That one it?
Right? Okay. All right. Good afternoon again. And first of all, I'd like, on behalf of all the men and women that work for Gainesville Fire and Rescue, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you. The proclamation last week that recognized our EMS first responders was very much appreciated, and I shared that, took it around the stations and shared that with our members. And certainly we'll let them know if they're not doing a good job of recognizing them, because they've been serving, of course, through the pandemic, and they were very grateful for that. Next slide, please. So one of the first things as we move to this slide, the commissioner has come up and told us, we were looking at some numbers, and my statistician back there, when we were looking at the flux during the day, there's a potential discrepancy. We documented as over 10,000, and Commissioner Santos said approximately 75,000. So I do want to acknowledge that, and we'll make sure that we capture that and make sure that that's correct. But one of the things we talk about, we have our mission here. The mission is what, next slide. The mission is what we do every day. We protect and serve through community involvement, and our vision, of course, to be a global model of excellence is what we aspire to be, a 21st century all hazards response organization, and of course a global model of excellence. One of the things that we'll talk about the city is that the increased density. The city is not necessarily, we are doing some annexing, but most of the things that are happening in the city are going to be the city building up, which creates a different threat to our response force. Our concerns, the complexity, I heard it mentioned earlier in one of the discussions about there's also the complexity of the types of calls we're running. So those are concerns that we deal with, but the men and women, we make sure that we provide them with adequate training, and you can go to the next slide to make sure that they respond. As part of our update, one of the things that we were tasked with doing, because it's a misnomer calling us a fire department because we do so many other things. And I want to make sure that most of what we do, approximately 70% is respond to EMS, but we're strategically placed in the community, and of course, technical rescue, we responded to Surfside, all these other things, and having the opportunity to lead with the Community First program was a blessing. And what we were able to accomplish down there was increasing neighbor trust and confidence, which is in the strategic plan. Increasing neighbor trust and confidence in city government and overcoming historic practices and actions. And actually there's the cleanup going on in Portage this evening where we're partnering with GPD to make sure that happens. So it's not something that's going to be fleeting, it is going to be sustained. And there are other programs across the city that are in action now, but I'm very proud of the work that GFR has done with that. One of the other things that we're doing, and certainly in this update, we've been very much involved with homelessness. And some of the highlights are our increased collaboration citywide with homeless services meetings that we continue to have, and the information that's coming out of those meetings. The Grace Outreach Team and GFR's Community Resource Paramedicine Program are also meeting weekly to discuss neighbors in need. And also, again, our partners, Lieutenant Scott, Sergeant Valdez with GPD, and I don't want to miss anybody, but Pete Backhouse from Codes, Miss Stetson, who's helped us with the My GNV. We're going to have a homeless component now, and we had to make sure that it was respectful. We've gone through the beta testing so that we can capture more data on our homeless neighbors. Next slide, please. Emergency management, something else that we do. During the course of the pandemic, which added just another layer to it, we have been managing, of course, updating the city emergency operation plan and inclement weather plan. And we've also been charged with the COVID crisis. That means we've been maintaining account of the supplies, making sure we're supply ready, developing a plan for response. We just worked with our partners in communication to provide an update as we recognize the trend that not only the nation but Alachua County, the city of Gainesville, there was some ticks up. So we quickly talked to the office of the city manager. We were green lighted to go ahead and put out that PSA to inform our citizens of the resources that our neighbors and community builders, of the resources that we have available to them and for them to continue their vigilance. And of course we have the flash reports that are put out to the office of the city manager to make sure that our neighbors, community builders are informed. And that's coming out of our emergency management. One of the big things, next slide please. When we look at the education, the outward facing things we do. So when people, I talk about this all the time because I believe strongly in marketing and branding and telling your story. And if we were standing in a room, matter of fact, if I can turn around, how many people in this room have had a fire in their house in the last year? So nobody raised their hand. So people say, well, you would think we don't need firefighters because we haven't had that. But that you have to make them understand all the other things that we do. And one of the things is going to be education. It's actually called a 3 years, education, engineering, and enforcement. And all those things run through GFR, which means that we do a very good job on the front end by preventing it. And but a lot of people don't see the value of that. So that's what we're very proud of. In all the classes and keeping our neighbors safe through our education, engineering, and enforcement, our Risk Reduction Bureau under Chief Hessen. Next slide, please. And as we talk about prevention, we take a look at the work that's going on in 2020 report. It was actually, if you look at Alachua County, now one of the reasons they say Alachua County because I talk about that, there were 20 civilian deaths and I believe 1 in the city of Gainesville. But when you look at that number, that's because Alachua County has the regional burn center. So a lot of people that are transported there. But and the density, of course, is greater within the city of Gainesville, but we have minimal casualties associated with that. And also you look at the data as far as when you say what is the relationship between accidental fires here in Gainesville, which is 44.2% here. In the state is 34%. In the city of Gainesville, incendiaries are 15%. The state is 37%. Undetermined is 38% in the city of Gainesville, and 19% when we're looking at trends across the state. And you may say, well, why our fires are we at 38% in the city of Gainesville? You have to have investigators to go out and be able to do that. And we're staff limited, but we do the best job that we can with the resources that we do have. And the next slide, please. One of the things that we talk about, and those numbers are for, if anybody recognizes those numbers, we were talking about a quarterly update, but this is for the half-year point, because annually what the city of Gainesville runs is about 20,000 calls for service and about 25,000. So those unit responses are actually a little high, about 25,000 unit responses, but we are all hazard response organization, meaning the fire, EMS, technical rescue, and everything in between. And I hope everybody in this room, is subscribe to Facebook and look at some of the things that we do. And when we say, you've never seen a picture of a dead cat in a tree, I don't think, but we've rescued hawks this year, ducks, some dogs, just about anything. We do those things because we respond to our neighbors and make sure that we assist them. And certainly some of the numbers were down previously because of COVID for our responses, but they're now approaching pre-COVID level. Next slide, please. Now, what you'll see here is just a visual distribution between our two districts, certainly not our electoral districts, but between District 1 and District 2, where the calls are actually happening. So the majority of the calls are going to be in District 1 because of the density. When you research the city of Gainesville, most of our people live with the core, and then it gets less dense as it goes out. Is there a point that you want to make about those calls, the call types?
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So, Deputy Fire Chief Joseph Hillhouse, one of the things that I would like to point out on this slide is you'll notice that there are calls that occur in the AAA and some calls that we actually end up on in the county. So I just wanted to point out that both our units from District 1 and District 2 respond all over the city of Gainesville and also in the AAA area.
Thank you. And next slide, please. And this just shows, again, the majority of the types of calls that we have a world-class emergency advanced life support providers, ALS providers here in the city of Gainesville. And you've heard me talk before about if you were to have a heart attack somewhere, this wouldn't be, and certainly heaven forbid, but this wouldn't be a bad place to do it because of the ROS level, a return of spontaneous circulation. It is a high ROS rate here within the city of Gainesville. And next slide. So if you were to go to Google right now and put in community resource paramedicine, and it wouldn't just be because of the location, I guarantee you that the city of Gainesville will come up. We are a leader, and I get calls from all across the country. I talk with the city manager of a colleague from Berkeley, California, had said, can you come out and talk to us about community resource paramedicine? And we present just about annually at conferences all across the country. So we are a leader. We are certainly moving toward that global vision of excellence when it comes to CRP. I'm very proud of what this program has become and the potential that it has to continue doing good things here within the Gainesville community. You can see some of the things, and we operate within those social determinants of health. And it doesn't matter what it is. If someone is socioeconomically proud, if they don't have their ID, if whatever the case is, we basically provide a bridge for them to get the services they need. Next slide, please. And there's certainly the commitment to excellence. One of the things that, as my mentors, you have to build the bench, and we talked about that succession planning. That's about giving people, encouraging them to seek and achieve higher education, levels of certifications and training, giving them opportunities to demonstrate competency. And we certainly had a award ceremony recently. And thank you to the commissioners, our city managers that attended, those of you that wanted to attend that could not. But that is part of it. Certainly recognizing the aspiration and desire for excellence and for people to want to do better for their neighbors and for themselves and for our community building. And next slide, please. So we just recently, we've been talking to the Office of Strategic Initiatives because they wanted, there's a conversation there about how we look at data. And certainly, I have the master plan, which shows, the data that was recently taken up to come up with the fact what are our needs and how do we stand up against national standards. So our key performance indicators, we meet those key performance indicators. And what I'm talking about here, as we look at the strengths are always going to be our people. We have people that rise to the occasion through the pandemic. Certainly, we had challenges with our staffing levels. People that were asked to work hours, overtime after overtime after overtime. Which some people say, hey, that's great, they made more money. But there's also a human toll with that. You have to understand that if you're not aware of PTSD in public safety in dealing with that. But our people are still our strength. Our weaknesses are our reserve capacity. And that means whether it is we have basically if there's a large incident in the city of Gainesville, we are done, and we have to depend upon our mutual aid partners to do that, as well as we were at a point about a month ago where we had no more reserve units within the city. And part of that is because of the supply chain, and part of that, of course, is because other factors, because other factors may be involved in that, but we were at that point where we were looking at trying to borrow some equipment. Opportunities, certainly the surtax as we're moving up, always looking at other partnerships, innovative thinking and funding opportunities. That's as part of the leadership team, that's our job, working with the Office of the City Manager to bring those forward. And certainly the threats are going to be staffing, with just about every other department within the city of Gainesville, and not just the city, probably the city of Gainesville, but across is dealing with staffing and retention issues. And here in the city of Gainesville is known that some of our facilities. Just some of the other things as we continue to talk about evolution. We do a good job of data collection and analysis, community resource reduction. These are threats or things that are concerned across our profession. The incident types are going to continue becoming more complex. It's my job to make sure that I provide my team with executive succession planning, executive level training. Our service delivery model, we're continuing to look at that, which includes right now we have an opportunity to become more involved in the mobile integrated health component of that. As you guys tasked us with, we've come forward with the chip, and we're okay with being in that space, and certainly any aspects of community engagement. So with that, as we'll be taking notes, because we want to know how you want, as we move forward to our future updates, exactly what type of data, and is this the form that you wanted on, so we can adjust and exceed your expectation.
Thank you, Chief. Any of my colleagues have comments, questions? Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Again, just a comment that you all do amazing work. We're really proud to have you out there representing the city of Gainesville. I appreciate everything y'all do.
Nothing. And so as far as my comments go, as far as reserve units, I've seen that, one fire requires 4 units to respond, and that having one incident kind of drains.
And that depends upon the size of the complexity of the fire. That would be for our 2,500 square foot single family residence, and it's a room and contents. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about the one right behind my house.
Oh.
So I got to see firsthand how many fire trucks show up, and how many people that does take, and how long it takes. So that's a long time that our people and our resources are tied up. So I very much recognize that capacity issue, and I'm glad that it's on our radar. Anything that we can do, or suggestions on how to alleviate that pressure, I'd welcome that, the innovative thinking to see what we can do, because that worries me. And since I got here, the fact that we ask firefighters to work overtime worries me, especially if it's been a Saturday night, or it's been one of those days where it doesn't stop. I do worry about our staffing levels at that point, because I don't want someone awake for 36 hours. Those would be my comments. Anyone else?
Can I just thank you, because on that day when I got there, apparently you had just left. And I don't know, the rumors are that you offered cookies and soda and milk and things like that, and they greatly appreciated
I asked
that.
if anything could help since you'd be there for a couple hours.
Yes, ma'am. So, I don't want to leave anything unturned, because one of the things that's important is that that comes up is diversity. And I pulled the numbers up from 2017, and we're actually doing good with our minority presence. It was at 43%. In 2017, and 44% in 2017, and we're at 43% today. However, our female, and I thought about this when I look back, and he's gone now, but our charter officer was back there. But our female presence has gone from 7% to 5%. But what I will say is that we were tasked. We were very fortunate that our office of the city manager supported us in hiring a non-certified class, and we just pulled the list this week. We shared that with the city manager, and we do believe that we're going to be able to bring more diversity to the Gainesville Fire and Rescue, and these are people that live in and around the city of Gainesville, not people that live across they're great people, but we want to hire local talent if at all possible. So I do want to recognize that as well.
Thank you, Chief. Important numbers. So I guess no one, any members of the public would like to comment? There's no member of the public here. Okay. Then I guess we have our next item. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
And everyone else. So our next topic is the RTS GNV Writer app update. Welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, Jesus Gomez with RTS. You can load the...
We're going to need about a second to load it when you want.
Okay. I guess of the few city commission meetings ago, you asked us to provide an update. So on this app, we introduced that in August 2021. We went live on October 2021. So we tested for 3 months. We really wanted to test it for longer, but previous vendor wasn't supportive of that idea. So we only tested for 3 months. So we have some issues. My staff is working with the current vendor that we have an app. Is Clever Devices. This is the vendor that we have, the operation system. And a lot of these improvements already, we're going to mention later on, is they're being taken care of. Next slide, please. There was simple stuff like the bus no longer, bus disappearing from the app. That's not happening anymore. The schedule feature wasn't activated, and we didn't have access to all the schedules on the routes, so we have that on the app. Simple as colors on the maps, on the routes, they're not good enough, so we improved the colors on the app. One of the features the offers with this operation system is they have detour information. When you select the map or your route, you can see the detours that we currently have on the existing route. That's something other apps don't offer, and they may, for the expensive modules they can come out with. But this is now with 50% of the routes going through campus and being rerouted. That's a good feature to have. So next slide, please. So others like the polling, we reduce it from 30 seconds to 15 seconds. So that's something that the bus icon was displaying on the app, and with these 15 seconds, I guess it's taking care of that. Some keyboard issues, and one option that we got requested is the stop near me, that you can select And you can see, on your location, what is the routes and stops that are actually close to you. This feature was released this early May. Next slide, please. So it's been a number of issues that we have with the comments from passengers, and this vendor was able to take care of it. So,
If I might, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just kind of wanted to recap. I'm kind of watching my clock and whatever, because I got to get on a flight and I don't want to miss it, but I didn't want to miss this item either. So I'm taking a risk, but it's okay. But I think, I don't know, maybe about a month or so ago, Commissioner Hayes Santos brought this to the floor of the commission because he had a concern with citizens' reaction, riders of RTS having a concern with the app and whether it was effective or not. And as Jesus has mentioned, this went live in October. I was just coming on board, but we did have a meeting with Commissioner Hayes Santos when Lee actually was still here, and wanted to see if the contractor could actually address some of the issues in the app. We gave that individual, I think it was about maybe 6 months, to actually address all the items that you're seeing here in the bullets. It appears that they have been addressed. However, as you heard from Commissioner Hayes Santos, I guess the usability of the app was still not satisfactory, so they've gone back, continued to address the vendor to see if the vendor, what is happening now, there are other services that this vendor provides to RTS. This particular app comes at no cost because it's a part of a bigger package. If we move from this app to another app, the potential could be as little as $125,000 on a recurring basis to put a new app in play. As you fast forward maybe through some of the other slides, not that you have to fast forward, but there are other slides where you can see a comparison of what this app does relative to other apps and the cost involved. And if you could maybe fast forward to the chart at least that says peer agency transit app. This is one where you'll see other apps that are used with other agencies. And the app after this, the slide after this, you'll see some of the alternatives. This is the one that I really would like for you to focus on just in terms of a comparison.
yes, the one in green is the app that we currently have.
It's our current app in green.
Yeah, and all the features, so it's not no cost to us because we had that was part of the operation system. There's also a movie app that we get information that this costs to $310,000 a year to do. If we downloaded a movie, was able to load our routes in there, so you can use it and compare that because we currently have the RTS routes in there. We also talked to the computer science at UF, and they say they can develop an app for us, but in order to maintain it, they say it costs at least $120,000 a year to maintain that. So it would be $260,000 to do that. The old app that we used to have is Translog, and used to cost this much to us, $330,000. So we were having savings on that. And also, Transit app seems to be the cheapest app. We see it $125,000 a year to operate that app.
And so with that too, Jesus, you may want to speak to the fact that if in fact it is the decision of the commission to consider moving to another app with that recurring cost attached to it, we probably wouldn't be able to get it into play until maybe 18 months. I may be pushing it, I don't want to overstate that, but it will be some time before we would move from the app that we have now to a new app. It would be about 18 months. Is that all right?
If we hire a developer to do a new app, yes.
So we'd have to have, okay.
If we work with some of these vendors, probably, take a little faster, but
Are there any grant funds that are available that you might share with the commission that could actually pay for this versus it coming from the general fund?
we can include it on one grant, the 5307 grant, but
What portion of it,
just the implementation piece.
which is about how much?
We can do, I think we put it for 150,000, just implementation, but the operating cost, that is the yearly cost, we don't have a grant to
And
do
the
that.
yearly cost is the minimum of
125,000 a year.
So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to the commission. So we're here because really we have an app that, doesn't have all the bells and whistles features that, maybe other cities have. But we have an app right now that actually is not costing the general fund. I'm sorry, is there
And
something?
it functions.
Any
Oh, yes,
questions?
yeah,
on this?
anyone, Commissioner Santos?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I'll put this out there because there are not many areas I would consider myself an expert, but I have worked for years in app development. It is an area that I've worked for years in my career. Just on it functioning, it doesn't function for me. I have to, if I use it once, I have to delete it and re-download it. So it's, and if you look at the reviews in the iOS store and Android store, other people have that same issue. Looking at the reviews in the iOS App Store, our current app has, out of 5 stars, is 1.1 stars. The Move It app has 4.7 stars. The If Computer Science is not one. I would strongly suggest we don't contract with the university because it makes it much more difficult for long-term maintenance. The Translock app we used to have was a 3.0, and the Transit app on the far right is a 4.7. What we currently have is not great. Sure, it can work, but does it actually kind of meet, I think, the standards that we have for our city? I strongly disagree that it does not. On a daily basis, most people who interact with our city is buses. I mean, that's on a daily basis. We have electricity, water, wastewater, but that's kind of just happened. But the daily interactions, we have thousands and thousands of people who interact every day. And I think it's important to, and who uses that it's usually our younger people and it's lower income. 2 people who don't complain in normal, they usually don't on a normal basis. But when we look at the actual apps in the stores, you do see very low rankings. I used, when I was in Portland last month, I used the transit app on the right there. It worked amazing. It was actually a joy to find and go to different places. If we want people to use, I think one of the big things in transit is more service or quicker service, and also, is it easy or not? Our current app does not make it easy. And if we want people to use transit, I think that's very important. To my point, I won't vote for the city budget unless we budget for this. I brought this forward a couple weeks after it launched, that this was not going to be fixable. I still don't think it's fixable because of how this app is. It's a website embedded inside of an app instead of a native app, and that's what creates a lot of the issues that are there. I strongly do believe that our residents who rely on us the most every day, we should give them something of quality, and I think it's worth us moving forward a different app. The timeline, if we went with I don't think we should build our own, but if we went with one of the other ones, it won't take 18 months to do that, I don't believe. That's what we built from fresh, I think. It would be a shorter period, but we need to do better. Our city, and also people demand better from technology now. They expect better. And when we don't have that, I think our own staff kind of looked at our UX staff or user experience staff looked at the app, and they kind of came to the same conclusions as well, that this app doesn't kind of meet high usability standards. So hopefully the direction we can go in is that we move forward with the new app. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, to compare the app to the budget, that's you. That kind of hurts me. But I would like for us to take a look at the customer monitoring numbers that we have in terms of Apple platform. 1,132 new Apple downloads since March, and since the launch of the app, it's been 27,000 downloads. The average active users each day is 4,800. Active devices active on an average of 23 sessions per week. The app is being used in Apple devices 1.5 million sessions since the launch, and so it is being used. I'm not going to say that it is the best app out there. Clearly not going to say that. But it is being used, and I'm not quite sure what kind of complaints you're getting right now. I can't speak to that because I don't know that. You may want to be able to speak to that better than I. But again, if it is the commission's, wish to, add an increment to address this, starting in October 1, because right now, as it relates to the budget, quite frankly, we need to hold steady and even retrench in some instances. So I'm concerned about the increments going forward.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Anyone else? Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I'm glad it doesn't cost us anything. That's great. And some people use it. The complaints I hear are it crashes constantly and it doesn't provide accurate information always. Which is fine as long as you have plenty of time as a bus user. But if it's raining and you're depending on the bus to get there, it's not fun. People love RTS. We have a really tremendous transit service. And I would hate for us for that to be tarnished by the inability to know when the bus is going to show up.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Safe travel. Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Chestnut?
I guess I was just trying to see what the app is really showing.
So you can download it. It's easy to download, but as far as what the reviews say, the most recent is from April 23rd, and you have to scroll pretty far to find 2 stars. The rest are 1, which hurts. I'll agree with Commissioner Ward there, but you can download it on an iPhone or an Android. It works on both, but
Okay,
it's downloadable on both.
thank you. I don't have a question.
Mr. Mayor? Any? No? No, he's not. Okay, cool. Just
Thank
Ron-
you, Madam
No,
Chair.
he's there.
Never mind.
Yeah, I understand the frustration that some people have had with the app. I first want to address Commissioner Isanto's comment that he won't vote for the budget if we don't allocate money for this. I'm very disappointed in that comment. The budget, all in all, is over $1 billion worth of employee pensions, police, fire, water, wastewater service provision, everything from CRP to maintaining our RTS fleet. To vote against all of that for one small part of what we do, I think sets a bad precedent for our budget deliberations. And so I wish that were not, sorry, I'm getting a phone call on my iPad, but I wish that were not an approach that any of us would take. I get this being important to you, but so important to not vote for the other, everything that we do is, I don't think, productive. I do think that we could, I don't pretend to be an expert in apps. I mean, I use them and I know when apps are more functional and less functional. I don't pretend to know what goes into making them so. But I do see a value in you having the same company that provides the rest of our technology support services for our transit service, also being the custodian of our app service. And based on what Mr. Gomez presented today, it appears that they have been working diligently to try to fix many, and have fixed many of the user functionality challenges that we've had. And I would want to allow them to continue doing so. I also understand this is a company and an app that is used by many transit services across the country. It's not like it's just us, and so if it's working better in other jurisdictions, I think we can learn from that as well and see how they're working there or not. And then ultimately, we can put in a placeholder increment for the next fiscal year. You know, so for example, something that was very important to me was implementing at least a part-time ombudsman. And I was a lone dissenting vote. I'm not gonna vote against the budget because y'all didn't approve that. And we did make a request that the commission look at doing that in the next 2-year budget cycle. I think that that's a fair request here, and that we allow this company to continue working with us and addressing the user experience issues that have been brought to their attention, and continue to better integrate that with our service delivery. And if they're not able to do that, you know, in a certain period of time, that the next commission can look at changing vendors and adding that increment, you know, in that next budget cycle. That to me seems like a reasonable path forward. It puts a firm deadline on our vendor, and they know that they have to make those improvements and meet our expectations. But it also gives a reasonable amount of time, both for them to do so or not do so, and if they're not, for us to go out and issue an RFP and solicit bids for a future vendor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Really quick, Commissioner Sanchez and Commissioner Chilton, I have a question. As far as all these fixes that we've been telling the company, like I need X, Y, and Z fixed, have they shown resistance or have they actually tried to fix them?
No, they were being proactive and willing to make the change.
They're willing, whenever we ask or identify something new?
Yes.
Okay. That's good to hear, because you don't know if something's broken until you try to use it, I think, which is why I was in favor of kind of giving this 6 months to try to fix what we can. That said, I get it, Commissioner Santos. A 1-star rating is not something you ever want to see. That said, starting, I'm just going to go as far back as January, we had like over a dozen complaints. And for someone to take the time to write a review about an app, you have to be pretty upset. That said, the complaints stopped like middle of April. We haven't had any new reviews, good or bad. I think that's hopeful. Usually when people are content, they don't take action one way or the other. So maybe that is a sign of some of the improvements have satisfied folks and they stopped writing the reviews. I would like to think it's that. That said, I know that in the rest of the presentation, you know, there are other fixes that we are still working on. And I imagine that in 5 years, there'll be 5 fixes we're working on. I like that it's free, or rather, I like that it's included in something we already paid for. I like that the company is willing to listen to what we need modified to fit Gainesville. I appreciate that. Is it working as fast as I would like? No, but the balancing of all of those, I understand that I learned this phrase, and I hate that I learned this phrase, a rounding error would be the cost for a new app. It wouldn't be, in the grand scheme of the budget, a lot of money to get a new app. That said, we don't have that money. We don't, and we all know that. I would rather take the route of checking again. Give it 6 more months, keep fixing, see how those interactions work now that we have gotten a lot of these fixes, because I think a lot of the responses you were getting was mid-fix. So I can't, probably cause more problems for people trying to use the app while it was being fixed. I'd rather see, now that we fixed so many of these, how our writers respond to it. then say here today, like, not scrap it, find a new vendor. I want to see if those changes mean anything. We had 6 months to make the changes. We haven't had time to see if the changes have improved the quality of service. I'm going to hold on to the sliver of hope that nobody complaining since the middle of April is good. That's almost a whole month without anyone complaining. And I'd rather take that approach. Give it another 6 months, finish those fixes, but see how these already that we've tried to fix, how do they work? Because I think it's only fair to give that time to observe post-fixing. So that would be my stance today, that just holding pattern. Continue to ask them to fix what needs to be fixed, and see if that changes the response our riders give. I won't disagree with the mayor on if we must build it into a placeholder for the next budget and ask the next commission, this is something we'd like to consider if it's still not working. But I can't support the procurement process and then the expense of a new app and putting that out there. Because no one app is going to be perfect. I'd rather fix what we can with minimal cost to the city. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor, I apologize. I wasn't trying to be too proactive, provocative, but just trying to say how important this is and how I think this app is going to be detrimental to the long-term viability of our transit service for the quality that we have. If you look at the other cities that use this app, they have the same rating as we do. It's not good. It's not a unique thing. It's a unique thing for this vendor who kind of did this as an add-on thing. We're talking about apps that have a 400% higher rating than we do. I mean, 1.1 to 4.7. I mean, other cities are using these, and they are making changes, yes, but those changes aren't actually fixing the usability and what people expect from an app. They are expecting better. They're expecting ease of use, and that's not what this is. And for something that's used so much every day, I think it's well worth the $125,000 a year for the number of people it would help, and I think it would get more people on board. We are a city with our transit user base changes very often because we do have new students who are coming in. But from my interaction with that, it is better than it was. It is not good, and it's not, from my work and working in apps, it is not going to get to a place where we're going to be ranking anywhere near okay in terms of like an app ranking or how well people enjoy it, just because of how it's on the underlying base of the app and how the app was designed. The other apps don't do that. They're native apps that are designed for it. If we want to hear from people, I will go get you people to go write this commission and let you know how much they hate this app. If you talk to people who ride the bus, they are not happy with it. If that's what it's going to take to move the commission, then I will move in that direction. I will put a motion on the floor that we move that we ask staff to start working on an RFP and that we budget, have a budget increment in the 2023 budget.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Chestnut?
Well, I would prefer that we, first of all, I think the vendor is probably hearing us loud and clear. And I would rather direct staff to monitor this and report back in 6 months. I think with the manager saying that an increment is going to be problematic in this budget, if the vendor doesn't improve in 6 months, then let's just move on. But I think the vendor should have a pretty good idea that we are not happy we will be moving on, and that not only are we not happy, it appears that other people aren't as well. But I don't think we can afford to to say that we have to put an increment in the budget at this point. It's just where I would go. That's my thinking. So in other words, I will not be supporting the motion.
So if I may offer a sort of middle ground, I hear everyone, including the loud people who ride the bus. We are in May. Our budget has to be finalized September 30th at the latest. I think that the manager's probably hearing this and very upset. 3 months from today puts us first third of August. If we could review in those 3 months, because I think that's enough time as opposed to 6, just get the next 3 months. We can, in the meantime, instruct staff to have that placeholder in the budget. If it does look like, no, this is definitely not working, come August, and there could be a placeholder. I would be comfortable putting a placeholder while we still review and hope that the changes make some change. Then we can revisit the issue of whether to go forward with that RFP or direct staff, this is what it's going to be, or release the funds back into the budget. Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll amend the budget this is placeholder, and we come back and, I mean, we do have to, if we are putting stuff in the budget, we are coming through budget discussions, and I think we should have that as part of the budget increments. That in July, that kind of come back and review this as well, and kind of where things are, and if significant improvements have been made or not.
Do you want to say like the last meeting in July? Or
I don't want to put an exact date on it, but we do have an increment in there, but it's one that we can always remove moving forward into the next year.
Would you still like them to work on the RFP?
I think we should start working on the RFP so that starts to speed up the process, yes.
But not release it until...
Yeah, not release it. It should take longer than that anyway to run an RFP.
So the motion will be have staff work on an RFP for a new vendor, plus placing a placeholder in the budget and reviewing this towards the end of July.
I'll
Is this
accept
second?
it as a second, but I have a,
Commissioner Ward?
thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. My guess is that with an app that customers are not happy with, City of Gainesville, other cities being a customer, and that they're not charging for it, my guess is that it's going to disappear as a service, and we should be prepared for that. Because if they're just throwing it in as here's an extra, they're not going to invest in making this a whole lot better, is my guess. I hope I'm wrong, but.
You are too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Santos?
I didn't think about that, but if it's not part of their kind of core platform, it is the service they offer, but that's probably why it's not something they are making an amazing app. It's because it's not core service.
Okay, all right, here is the concern I have. By putting a placeholder in the budget, we are tying up money that the manager would be able to use to meet other needs. So that's why I'm really against a placeholder, period. Mr. Manager, does staff have anything else to say about a vendor?
Well,
Y'all have anything else you want to add?
no, we look at a lot of different vendors, and actually to have the app, the information of RTS information, that you can look at the app and see how that works for you. It's already there, the information, the RTS information is on the Move It app and also on the Transit app.
Okay, well, let me say it another way. It seems to me right now, this commission is very, very upset with the app, and I'm asking you, what do you think? Where do you want to go? That's what I'm asking you, because you need to, I think, Mr. Manager, you need to be able to sort of defend.
What they are saying is that,
Thank
when I
you.
went to it, was that they have looked at all the other vendors, and that's what they have put up as the alternative summary. And that they have made strides into meeting, correcting rather, some of the deficiencies that was noted to them. My understanding is where we are right now is they have exhausted what they have, and this is where we are. Would you like to add anything to it?
Right, I would say that the vendor we have is our recommendation to keep. They have been
That's the
very
free
easy to
vendor.
work with. They provide our other operating system. They are used in other major transit agencies. There's some other, New York City uses them.
All right, so this is the free vendor.
This is
that
the free
Commissioner
vendor.
Hayes
Right.
Santos is talking about.
Correct.
The free vendor.
Yes. And they have been working with us. They even changed some of their platform that impacted their other cities that they serve because we requested it. So they have gone far above and beyond accommodating all of our requests thus far. So the changes that were just implemented just went into effect in the last 2 weeks, the most recent changes. We would like to give them additional opportunity to finish, to at least allow those changes to have an impact. Part of the challenge through this whole process, we launched the app at the same time the university shut down roads. And so there has been a huge challenge with all the construction on campus. We have been able to change the app in real time. None of the other apps offer that. So one of the key things with this app is we have been able to change the routes in real time. So I would say the vendor has gone far above and beyond. We are not tied to any vendor if the commission wants us to look at other folks. We have looked at them. We've provided all the information that we've gathered over the last several months. We are happy to go with the direction. When we met with the city manager, her recommendation was also to stay with the existing vendor because, and again, there is no cost. We work closely with UF. It was 3 years in development. UF is supportive of this app as well, of this vendor.
Commissioner Creedy?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
You conclude?
I conclude.
Commissioner Sasha?
Thank you. U.S. student government's not in favor of this.
UF Transportation and Parking, let me rephrase, the folks that we work with the most, and who
Students.
also.
The people who actually use that.
I'm not in favor.
Ms. McCready, just to clarify, you said the last series of changes went live 2 weeks ago?
Within the last 2 weeks, there were some that just went into effect last week.
So that's about when, I think the last one is April 20th is the last review.
Yeah, April 9th. Yeah, April 20th.
So I did not know, I think the full extent of cities that this vendor works with, so I appreciate knowing.
There were some additional transit agencies that use it besides New York. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
about 20 more transit
There's
agencies.
20 other transit agencies, and they're much larger than ours. So we're one of their smaller customers, yet they're making changes and forming the entire platform nationwide.
That's good to know. Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Mayor, one last check-in with you.
Can I please get a summary of the motion?
Yes, the motion currently as modified is staff begin working on an RFP for a new app, plus adding a budget placeholder in case we do need to go forward with a new app, plus come back for a review session of the current app in July, at which point we decide to confirm the placeholder or to release it back into the budget.
Thank you.
Did I get that correctly? So no other comments, we will go to the public. Do we have anyone signed up to comment? Okay. Anyone that hasn't signed up, want to comment on the issue? I promise they will move if you want to use this. No one? Okay. So in that case, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
So that's 4-1 with Commissioner Chestnut in dissent. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in 2-ish months.
See us for the next presentation.
That's true.
I got ahead of myself. It's been 2 months has passed. Mr. Rivas, thank you for coming back.
All right.
Okay, Lord.
So our next one is our transit service changes. All yours.
Yes. If you can load the presentation, please. So these proposed changes are trying to address the, of course, we had customers concerns, that's comments we get from the passengers, is the east-west connection. They take a lot of times to get to the one point A to point B. The transfer, you have to do several transfers. So some of these concerns that we, in former city manager are pushing us to do reimagine transit. With COVID situation put us on a spot that we reduce ridership, and maybe it's now the opportunity to reinvent some of the routes to address that, to see if we can get the choice riders to get into the system. So with that, next slide, please. So we're gonna present the routes that we proposing no changes, modifying some frequencies, discontinue routes, new routes that we mainly from Santa Fe and UF request, and a proposal for additional microtransit service. Next slide, please. So we have 17 routes that we wanted to keep the service as they are. I'm not gonna mention all of that, but that's from 2 to the Route 150. We had 23 routes that we recommend frequency changes. During COVID, we have some routes that have a lot of ridership, but after COVID, the ridership is going to 50% of that. So we talked in 2019, we almost have 9.5 million passengers. We're talking about last year we have 2.9, so it's major. We projecting that we go over 5 million this year, so we're trying to recover, but it's slowly recovering. Mainly because a lot of students are now coming back to campus, and that's 80% of our ridership. And the construction on campus is basically being really tough to navigate through campus when 50% of the routes go through campus. So one of the routes we propose to discontinue is the Route 800. That's Bartlett to Plaza to Santa Fe. It's being funded 100% by Santa Fe. So that we talk about that a little later. And on the east side, one route modification, we talk about that. That's Route 24, 27. On those routes, we have almost 2-hour frequency. They interline with one bus, so it's no uses. Before COVID, they were not using that route, and after COVID, really ridership is really low. Next slide, please. So also, all these changes we were proposing, we were thinking that we have full staff. With drivers, with George, that we have, as of today, we have 52 vacancies. So we're talking about these proposed changes, but we're probably not going to be able to implement any of those. So please keep that in mind. So one of the proposal is the new Route 80. My staff come out with the name of Compass, East-West, and Route 81, North-South. So to have a major connection between the city, north and south, east and west. Those are part of our transit development plan, and we're trying to address some type of BRT light approach to this. And we'll see the maps later on. Santa Fe, in order to replace that Route 800, the Transportation Committee decided to call this Route 78. We propose 2 buses on that route, but I guess due to funding constraints, they just want to fund 1 bus. And a new Route 88 connecting the 2 campuses of Santa Fe. So I'll show you the maps in a minute. The UF, the routes, since the students are moving closer to campus, we proposing 2 new routes and circulators in the city to campus. So we'll show you the maps. Next slide, please. Next. Trying to go a little. So the east-west connection. So we identified the stops that have the highest number of routes as main stops. We call it mobility hubs that we can enhance and do micro-mobility and circulators feeding to those route main stops to provide an east-west connection from the health department to Bartlett Plaza. Health department until we have the east side transfer station, and then we can move that stop to the east side transfer station. And in the future, we can rearrange the system feeding to the east side to connect to that route. Next slide. On the north-south, we have from Walmart all the way to, I believe it's Meridian Center, or we can go to where the Route 13 ends. Limited stops, to speed up the route, so from north-south connection. We got public input, and they requested an additional stop on close to 39th Avenue. Next slide. So you see the main lines here connecting the north, south, east, west in the city. So the idea is to have some decent frequency. And what we doing, rearranging all these routes is also to be cost neutral. We're not asking for any increments or anything like that. So we're trying to be more efficient to what we have. Next slide. So in order to do that, we have to take some buses out of the routes 1, 8, 13, and 20 to create the routes 80 and 81. So you see, for example, that Route 1 have 5 buses, and we reduce them to 3 buses. But the frequency will change from 15 to 20-minute frequency. The ones that is affected the most is the Route 8. I guess that's the one that probably Commissioner Santos used. And it's the frequency from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So in the other ones, you can see, how the frequency changed when we move buses from those routes to create the other 2. Next slide. One of the routes on the east side that we, even before COVID, the productivity wasn't there, is this Route 24. I guess after the Job Corps closed, so we don't have any activity going in there. So one of the proposals is to at least cut that segment because it's really, even before COVID, that was not even utilized, and now it's even worse. So on that route, we have, I think, 4 passings an average, and which is low for fixed route. On the next, the Route 27 is also, better, have a little bit more ridership, but it's also every 2 hours. So with that frequency, really nobody's using it. So one of the proposals from, next slide, please. So we review the information that we have on that route and those 2 routes and the activity centers and ridership by stop. And on next slide, we have a proposed Route 27. Some of our planners, recommended just delete those 2 routes completely. But just trying to be cost neutral, we said, okay, well, we propose that Route 27 is gonna address the service to the new Blount Center and going to Walmart. So that's my stuff, we were proposing on that. This route would be, next slide, 1 hour frequency instead of 2 hours, and we believe it's gonna be perform a lot better than the other 2. Next slide. This is the route that's proposed for Santa Fe, the Santa Fe community, from Barley Plaza all the way to Santa Fe. That's serving a new area, that we have the 8th Avenue Road that was opened not too long ago. That serves also the SWAC area, and also Tower Road, and serve new areas that we don't serve before, all the way to Santa Fe. Frequencies, it's only 90 minutes, yes, frequency, but that's what I guess Santa Fe can afford at this point right now. Next slide. This is also the new Route 88 connecting Santa Fe to Santa Fe, the Plum Center to the main campus. Also serving new area in the city that we don't serve before, like 31st Avenue, 23rd Avenue. Go from the Blonde Center to the Super Walmart on the east side, to the Greyhound, and then all the way to Santa Fe using 39th Avenue. So we propose 2 buses on that route, I believe at 40-minute frequency. Next slide. So those, because there are Santa Fe funded routes, the service they want is from 7 to 4 p.m. with 90 and 40-minute frequency. Next slide. So circulators on campus, since the students are moving closer to campus, this is one of the proposals that came out of the UF Transportation Fee Committee. So it's serving Depot Avenue, touch a little bit the Porter's neighborhood, and then 2nd Avenue all the way to UF. It's a circulator with a 30-minute frequency. That's what the committee voted to fund. Next slide. This is another route that also a circulator that the students voted for, and serving other parts of the city all the way to UF. Next slide. So that's only 1 bus on each route, but 30-minute frequency because it's a short circulator. Next slide. As a part of the transit development plan, one of the services that we contemplating is the mobility on demand, is zones. So the city is divided in 7 zones. Right now, we only do service on pieces of the zone number 2, that is the east side. And we serve all the way to Super Walmart and downtown station. So what we proposed, that was an idea of the Santa Fe committee, and we proposed extending that to serve the entire zone. Next slide. On the next slide, you see all the area covered by zone number 2. Of course, the idea is to implement that citywide, but we still working on just the east side. So Santa Fe were willing to pay for the van, but after this presentation was provided, last week they told us they don't have funding to do this. So, but it's a good idea to extend that zone later on in the future. So the service is similar to the current microtransit service that we have. And that's all we have.
Thank you. Just to clarify, that the mobility on demand was not expanded, the zone was not.
Well, the proposal was to expand it to this to what you see in the last slide.
And is that going forward or not?
No.
It's not. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, thank you. I believe Commissioner Chestnut.
Okay, so I have a question. Is UF student government reducing their contract because students are, you said students are not going to use, they're not using the bus as much?
No, we keep in the same budget.
At this point? Okay.
They're not increasing the credit hours for transportation.
The credit hours?
There's a
Yeah,
per credit hour is a fee.
Oh, okay,
$9, $10,
The
Okay.
students pay for per credit hours.
per credit hour. Okay,
Yeah.
now, then the new areas you talked about that you're expanding to that we've never tried before, that cost is being borne by the city?
Santa Fe.
By Santa Fe, okay, that wasn't clear. Now, the routes that you're reducing, I think,
The 24.
yeah, you know, some people use RTS for economic development to get to work. I'm concerned there if you're reducing the route so people will not be able to get to work. And if you are increasing that frequency to a two-hour increment, people won't be able to hold a job if they've got to wait 2 hours for a bus to come back by. If they have to be at work at,
The only segment we're proposing to cut is the one serving the job corps.
okay, I want to be
All the
clear.
other segments are covered by all the routes.
Okay,
So people are gonna be able to go
they'll
to
still
work.
be able to get to work.
Mhm.
You're just cutting job corps.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And if I may, I think it actually reduced the wait time, the frequency.
Yeah,
It went
reduce
from
to every
2
hour
to
instead
1.
of waiting for 2 hours, they're gonna be waiting for just 1 hour.
One,
I mean, depend, if that is exclusively
Well, yeah.
for any one point. But it is.
It's not ideal, but it's better.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Nisanda?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you all for work on this. On the express routes, having a cross-city route, I think is very important. It's something that I think will significantly help the city from getting east to west. When I used to live on Walden Road and Fifth Avenue, it was very tough to get, it was much harder to go west. I'm concerned that the effects on local service, because we're taking buses off of local service and putting towards the express, and maybe over time there might be more stops added to the express. That's usually what happens to routes we create. They become beasts. But I do think it's an important thing for us to move forward on. On the Route 78, if we can go to that slide, I guess a couple slides back. Couple more back. A few more.
Oh, that's
Oh, we're almost there. Two more, I think.
Santa Fe to Butler
One more.
Plaza.
Yeah, so this route here, which currently has it's being funded by Santa Fe, but it has a 90-minute headway. I have serious concerns with having such long headways because of the reputational kind of risk of people just think that RTS is slow and the effects of kind of perceived, and the quality of it. While this is not being funded by us, it still means you have to find a driver. And we are very low on drivers, and it's affecting all the routes. A good portion of this is happening outside of the city limits as well. I personally don't think that we should create a new route when we have such big issues within kind of the filling the rest of the service. And having a 90-minute headway is... I think we have to worry about the reputation of our transit. We want people to use it. They want to think, oh, it's going to be quick and easy. 90-minute headway is like that 2-hour headway. That's why no one uses it, because you get to that point and anything over 60 minutes is just, I think you probably see a significant drop-off. Is that kind of correct? And kind of
The more frequent
yeah.
service, the prices are
So that's one I would like for us to consider, of asking Santa Fe to move those dollars to a different route, and us not moving forward that, because we're going to have, I think we'll have trouble even doing that route in the first place with our low number of drivers that we have. Another one, if we can go to Route 27, the one that we're kind of consolidating 24 and 27. It's my understanding one of the other recommendations kind of earlier was to get rid of both of them because of kind of the hours and because that, or the headways frequency. But that area is also serviced by routes 26, 6, 15, 11, 26, and then the new route 88 also covers through that area too. I think it might be better, and definitely as I just heard that that Santa Fe is pulling the mobility on demand, is for us to look at taking that route and just making better service in that area. Having a bunch of bus routes that are just really slow, I don't think is useful. If we can speed up service, they might have to walk a few blocks further, but I think having a service that goes every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes is a big difference. Or us trying and expanding the on-demand option that currently is not moving forward anymore. But if we took that Route 27, we could do that. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'd like for us to consider, us not moving forward with 78 because of the service quality kind of perception issue, and also just us adding new routes when we can barely fill our own routes, and then ending the new Route 27, moving that bus to either on-demand service or to other routes in that area to increase the frequency. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. There's a lot that's good here. Route 88, I especially love. That's pretty great. Adding that service down 31st Avenue is a big deal. That's a game changer for a lot of people. When we talk about our shortage of drivers, and I'm seeing a trend here. We and it's natural. You all, staff, you give us the numbers on what we're missing, not only at RTS, but at GPD, at HR, wherever we're low. It's important for folks to know that that's not just a City of Gainesville thing, and to be reminded of that. The University of Florida is having trouble with the same sorts of things. The school board can't fill bus drivers to save their lives. I mean, it is not just the City of Gainesville, and if we don't provide that context, then people watch and listen, and the perception is the city is dropping the ball. Everybody else is okay, but the city can't do anything right, and that's just not true. So that context matters, and it's hard to do that. I get that. But when we do these presentations, if we're going to talk about our staffing levels, it would be good to have context for what that's like industry-wide. Just as a kind of a side note, I love I love the potential of our mobility on demand zones. I think those are game changers, particularly in conjunction with the compass routes. Those cross-city routes fed by mobility on demand routes, that's the future of this, I think. And I'm looking forward to us being able to do that. My understanding, and this is probably 3 years old, but the cost for a mobility on demand route was about $250,000. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah. So we're looking at $1.8 million to fill all 7 routes out. Just something to keep in mind for future budgets as we move forward. A thing that is very important to me that I think it is one of the things that we could do with our transit system to save and change a huge number of lives is getting service out to, one way or another, whether it's on demand or a fixed route, out to Turkey Creek Forest. And I know that that's a challenge. I get the reasons why we don't do it. But you're talking about hundreds of people, low hundreds, 300-400 people, many of whom don't drive. But they're at 2.5 miles from the closest RTS stop, maybe 2 miles, the north end of the shopping center there. If we could get those folks to the transfer, it's not a transfer station, but the Walmart, the stop there, that changes lives for a whole lot of people. There are probably 100, 200 people whose lives would be massively improved by that. I would love to see us figure out how to make that work. We talked around it a lot over the last 5 years, but if we're looking for things that really make a difference in the lives of the people who live here, that's one of the things that really could do that. So I'm putting that plea out there, and hopefully we can figure something out with it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Checking on you, Mr. Mayor.
Not right now.
Okay. Commissioner Hayes Santos?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I guess I want to get staff's opinion on the Route 27 and taking that, if that route was removed, that is serviced by other areas, and taking that either to increase frequency or being able to actually do that, the on-demand service. And then, I guess on that first one, and then on the second one on Route 78, and we'll even be able to fulfill that and having that 90-minute frequency as well. And then perceptions of our service quality as well with such a
You know, on the Route 27, I guess our planning staff was like 50-50. They said, okay, you can eliminate that route because you have enough service to cover that area, and add that to the on-demand, to do the on-demand service. They won't say, well, the Route 27 with better frequency is gonna be easy a lot more. So it was like a 50-50, could go either way, it'd be okay. On the Route 78, well, we have a partnership with the Santa Fe, so that was the Transportation Fee Committee. We provided that recommendation to do 2 buses instead of 1. So it was a better frequency, 45 minutes instead of 90 minutes. But they voted for it. They want it because they have some students that live in the southwest area. They go to the Bartlett Plaza station and go and use that route to go all the way to Santa Fe. So they said they take long time to go to Santa Fe because they live in the southwest area, but they want to use that route. That's the feedback we're getting from them.
And Jurgen, what about like the perception of quality of RTS and just having routes like that are so bad?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. When we propose decent frequency, but you always, always funding. And, sometimes we started it like that and we add frequency and it gets a lot better. But the quality on long routes and longer frequencies are not, you don't get that many people to use it until you improve the frequency.
I'll put a motion on the floor that we request that, I guess go back to Santa Fe and ask if they can increase the frequency so it's under 60 minutes for Route 78. And that we also take the new Route 27 and not do that route and have staff come back with either increasing mobility on demand or increasing frequency of one of the other routes that service that area.
Well, the Route 27 is a city route, so you make that decision.
Saying, but I don't know if it's better to increase frequency or to do the mobility on demand. If you could think about that and come back.
Okay.
Staff will look at it and they will come back, after they make an evaluation, and we'll come back to you, Madam Chair, Commission.
Just to clarify, it's, ask Santa Fe just to reconsider the frequency of 78 and find.
If they're not funding the mobility on demand in Zone 2, maybe that freed up some funds and trying to get the frequency below 60 minutes on Route 78. So that's not stopping it, but just requesting a request from the commission, I guess.
Okay.
And then the Route 27 is to reallocate that to either higher frequency in the area or the
As staff sees.
increasing the mobility on demand area in that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, Commissioner Wilbur second. Mr. Mayor, last check before I go to the public.
I'm good.
Clearly not, but okay. Would anyone signed up to comment on this one? Okay. Anyone want to comment on this item?
I can just tell you that staff is from RTS. I did a tour of the facility, and they are actively got a campaign to recruit for drivers. As you all commented earlier, that it is a challenge, not only here with the city, but throughout. But I can tell you, I was impressed with the campaign that they have, that they're really out trying to recruit for those drivers. I just want to make sure that you know that.
Thank you,
they're
Chief.
working on it.
I also did a tour, and it happened to be training day, like day one for some folks.
Right, better make there was some in the room.
And I also know, I spoke about overtime with our firefighters earlier. We had to draft folks for overtime on RTS, and anyone who handles heavy machinery, I don't want on overtime. So anything that we can do to really alleviate that problem, I know everyone at the team is really working hard to
Mayor
bring
Pro
these
Tem,
numbers.
we doing our job fair every week now, and we're trying to, select the candidate on the spot, trying to do a background check as quick as possible and have it ready to go pending the health assessment
And you
the
help
next 2 weeks.
people get that license, right? Like, we train you, right? For
Yeah,
anyone watching?
We train, yeah.
Yeah, we will train you to, and pay you to get it. So I'm really impressed with all the efforts there. Okay, so we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And now I will see you in a couple weeks. Next, last but final and not least, by any measure, street lighting and vision management. Chief, would you like to introduce?
Yes, I would like to introduce Mr. Phil Mann, and he will lead this presentation.
Mr. Mann.
We can get the presentation up. While she's pulling it up, I'll give a little background. February of last year, the City Commission made a referral to the general manager and the city manager regarding how streetlights is affected by our vegetation management. And the city manager and the general manager put together a cross-functional team to put this together. I guess I've got to wait for a second.
I mean, I have dad jokes while we wait. That's part of this job, right?
Right.
What do you call a can opener that doesn't work? A can't opener. I think the mayor's proud of me.
Go ahead and move to the set. Thank you. So a in-depth cross-functional team was put together to study this issue. When you get to looking at the technicalities of this, it covers many aspects of the things that the city does. So we brought in, and Chief Inspector Koenig is going to lead the presentation because a lot of this relates to how streetlights, lighting, and everything affects crime and how people go to places. So she was one of the key people on the team. Everybody on this team was key, but we had GRU, we had their street lighting person and their urban forester, their utility forester. We had a representative from GCRA. We had a representative from Sustainable Development. Lawrence Calderon is going to conclude the presentation after Chief Inspector Koenig. And then we had the Department of Technology, because if you remember, we also had talked about smart street lights. And then from the Public Works Department, we had an engineer and our arborist and one of our tree surgeons. And one of the things I would like to say is in order to fully get an idea of how this works, we did a field trip one Friday night, and it was volunteer, and we had 100% participation from the committee on a Friday night to go out and look at streetlights and various neighborhoods. And we went to numerous parts of the city. We went to what works well and what doesn't work well. So we saw a lot of the things that we've heard from the commission and our neighbors. And with that, to tell you how we got there, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Inspector Koenig.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. And I will add, that sounds like a great use of a Friday night.
And we were all stuck in a van together. It was
Oh, wait,
amazing.
never mind. I changed my mind.
It was a wonderful, wonderful evening, and it gave us the opportunity to look at the city from a different perspective at a different time and talk about some of the safety aspects that we focus on a lot at the police department. Part of my career has been involved in crime prevention through environmental design, and that involves lighting, landscaping, and giving recommendations, and actually working with the Sustainable Development Department, planning, and talking about how we can make our streets and our city safer. So this was a great committee to be part of because that's really what we were focused on. I'm going to show you 8 maps, and the point of it is not to overwhelm you, but to give you what the committee looked at from the very beginning. And the reason we did that was we first were told that this was about, we were recently seeing lots of pedestrian-involved traffic homicides that were occurring along the University Avenue corridor and some other areas of our city. So the first couple maps that we'll look at will be those. And then we're going to focus on pedestrian crashes, violent crimes, and then overlaying the 2 maps on top of each other. So I'll explain as we go through, but this was how the committee kind of looked at what crime and what lighting and what traffic crashes were doing within the city to give us a focus area when we went out on that Friday night. So if I could ask for the first slide, please. This first one is our traffic homicides over a 5-year period, and this is from 2016 to 2020. And the main focus of this and the 2 areas that you'll see the most is actually along the Waldo Road corridor and then along the West University Avenue corridor. Very easy to look at, quick to identify. You say, okay, that's pretty easy. The interesting part is that both of those are state roads. The next slide that we have encompasses 2021, and I want you to see the cluster along the Waldo Road area that got more significant. And it's a little bit closer between 8th Avenue and University Avenue, but you still see the same trend along University Avenue and that University Avenue corridor. 4 lanes, they have high speeds. We know we've done a ton to address all of these issues. But we really started here, and this is when the committee first started, just to give us an idea of areas that we wanted to focus on and to look at for vegetation and street lighting. The next slide, please. So here we see density maps of pedestrian-involved crashes. Now, we started out looking at these 2 years, which was 2019 and 2020. So the next 3 maps are going to be 2019 and 2020. And we'll finish out the maps with 2021. The concentration where you see the red area along that map is the highest concentration of pedestrian-involved crashes. The easiest way for me to describe that is the University Avenue corridor. It's shown very distinctly in both of the maps. The purple is actually the most, I will call it the most dense, and then the red on the map on the left that you see. So we definitely can tell that these are the areas across the city that we see the most crashes in. And this is traffic crashes, and this is only crashes involving pedestrians. So there are multiple crashes across the city that involve 2 cars, a car and a motorcycle, but this is specifically pedestrian scale. And the reason is because our mandate was to look at pedestrian scale areas for pedestrian scale lighting within the city limits. The next map involves violent crime and involves 2019 and 2020. So we'll switch to that map. As you can see, some of the areas that we are seeing the pedestrian traffic and the pedestrian issues, we're also seeing violent crime. We'll flip to the next map, please. So this is taking the violent crime map and the traffic crashes map and overlaying them together. And then in those maps, you see that the highest density areas for traffic crashes and violent crime is still along the University corridor area. And it does spread out north and south in some directions, but we were trying to find a correlation. If we had better lighting, would we be able to affect both? We knew that pedestrian crashes and this would be involved, so we next took our next step to look at the year of 2021. So the first one is just pedestrian crashes. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So this is pedestrian crashes. Once again, you see the same pattern. The next slide, please. Now we have violent crime, and this is for 2021. The highest density along that same corridor. And then the third map is both the crashes and the violent crime layered on top of each other.
So you can see over the many years that there is significant pattern between the University Avenues, between Waldo Road Avenue corridor, and it goes north and south of that corridor. But there is a significant amount of crashes and violent crime in that area. So when we all got together on the Friday night, we jumped in the bus, and the first thing we did was drive down the University Avenue corridor. And we also went north and south and looked at several new buildings, several existing buildings, and a lot of our focus when we actually got out and walked was about 300 Northwest 13th Street to University Avenue, going both east and west on University Avenue, and looking at new businesses and existing businesses, and understanding that as we build up as a city in terms of the scale of buildings going taller, we recognize that we are building density inside the city, and there's a lot more walkability there. So we have 1,200 students that are living in the Standard at 1300 West. You're going to have more students coming out and walking to campus, walking across 13th Street, walking across University Avenue, and really focusing on what the lighting looks like in those areas in order to stop and reduce crimes. It wasn't too long after, right as our bus ride went, it was probably a few weeks after we had just had a pedestrian homicide at 300 Northwest 13th Street, right in front of Krispy Kreme in that business area. So the focus of the committee was to come up with what areas need focus, and this is what we used as our focus. And then the next step was coming up with tangible ways that we could work on helping businesses that both were building and new building developments that we're helping within the city, and what we were going to do in terms of vegetation, not planting trees too close to lights. Because what we see is after 5 to 10 years of a live oak being in a place within 10 feet of a light pole, the light pole is now the live oak. You can't see the light pole anymore, it's in the tree. So we worked with the Urban Forestry Development, and we worked with the Department of Sustainable Development, and we've come up with some recommendations. So at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Lawrence Calderon from the Sustainable Development, and he will come up and tell us all about it. His slides are next.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor,
answered anything.
members of the Commission, Lawrence Calderon, Department of Sustainable Development. Jamie has provided you with a picture of the security status of the city based on various geographic areas. And what we see is the need to address security for the entire community, but our focus today is primarily on pedestrians and the corridor. So when we look at the corridor and pedestrians, we're not thinking only as a walkway that goes along the roadside, but it's really a place of social interaction. You have people moving into the adjacent buildings on the side, in and out. You have people taking the buses. You have people moving up and down the alley. You have people crossing the streets. So there is an integration, a continuous flow between the roadway and the developments that's along the side. Yet, the way we review development and the way we view it is that there is a property line, we stop there, and everything between the property line, which is that yellow section that you see. Could we open this? Is this slide open? The area that we see here is that area looks like a physical corridor, but it's actually a demonstration of the fluidity that occurs, and we need to be aware of that and take recognition of it. I cannot even see the slide, but I'm looking at the diagram here, and what we have is that the lighting committee, we currently are working on a proposal to modify the ordinances that would be submitted to the city plan board, and ultimately it will come to you. So what we have here is the street, as you see here, the yellow section is that corridor that I talked about. And we're providing a coordinated set of standards for development that comes in now and in the right of way. So right now, we have a lot of development coming in, but we do not have the regulations to address it. So we're trying to provide those regulations so that we can address those. We want to extend the development review process to include the areas within the right-of-way. The structure that you see there is a pattern that is replicated in all cities. Everywhere you walk, you see the roadway, you see the curb, sometimes there's off-street parking, you see the landscaping strip, and then you see the sidewalk and where people gather, the sidewalk cafe and the private building. So we want to use that as a basis for looking at, for analyzing how we address lighting and pedestrian flow within the corridor. We looked at a number of areas. We looked at process. We looked at street lighting. Could you have the next slide, please? We looked at the crosswalks. And we looked at various aspects of it. One of the things that we noticed is that when pedestrians are moving up and down the corridor, which I call the area between the street and the buildings, is that they get to an intersection, and at that time there is a narrow space, not enough room for them to gather and wait to cross to the other side of the street. So what we're proposing is we're looking at options for creating wider space and larger areas for people to stand there and gather, rather than sometimes what they do if they're standing there and there's not enough space is that they would jaywalk or run across, and that leads to the accidents that Jamie talked about. We want to do the same thing with mid-block crossings, so that in certain areas and based on certain density and intensity of uses, we will require that additional space be provided for those areas. Sidewalk and street widths. One of the things that that came to us, very, very strongly when we do this walk was the lack of space between the curb and the buildings. And one of the things we want to do is try to work on looking at wider sidewalks in these areas, how we lay out the various infrastructure that occurs within the right-of-way, and try to control or regulate them in a better way. May I have the next slide, please? The next area that we looked at is the placement of trees, like Jamie talked about, and lighting and other infrastructure is highly dependent on each other and are closely related. What happens is that the code requires street trees, it requires frontage trees, it requires sidewalks, and then you have the signs have to go in, you have GRU's infrastructure, you have fire hydrants. All those things are fighting for or struggling for space within the right-of-way. So one of the things we want to look at, it would be where trees are required, find ways of providing more prolific on-the-ground space for trees to grow. And so that's why we have the paving, the vault section there, so that beneath the ground, beneath the surface, you have that soil that is available to plants for them to grow, and they grow fully within the urban environment, because we are a tree city and we want to see the trees grow in the city. We want to try to avoid conflicts between trees, and what we want to do in these cases is provide regulation for the distance between trees, how close they can get. We're working currently on a canopy over a certain period of time so that we can allow trees below that canopy and not trees like Jamie showed that are growing into the light pole, and you really cannot meet the impact of those areas. We have looked at the primary organizations involved in lighting and roadway design. They are the IESNA, that's the Illumination Engineering Society of North America, the Florida Green Book, which is used frequently, AASHTO, the IESNA Model Lighting Ordinance. There is a Model Lighting Ordinance we use, and it's based on the roadway classification. And based on this roadway classification, lighting is such that you cannot just put, say, 2-foot candles or 10-foot candles in one place. It varies from one area to the other. So what we're trying to look at is areas like the suburban area where we have low lighting areas. We want to look at that and provide specific lighting guidance for those areas. In the downtown area, which is the extreme, people are able to tolerate higher intensity lighting, and we need higher intensity lighting so that people can see each other, vehicles can see pedestrians on the road. So we're looking at that option, and we plan to work with consultants and try to find ways of bringing all of those new technology and using some of those strategies so that we can improve safety, provide more space, and provide a more comfortable and secure corridor for our residents in every place throughout Gainesville. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission, I want to make sure at least one of us is Madam Mayor Pro Tem today. As you can see, this was a very diverse committee, and one of the things that I learned as leading this committee, besides the incredible work the group did, I want to compliment all of them for their participation. But one of the issues that we found was that there's not a lot of coordination between our development review of how we plant trees and how we do street lights. And that, when Jamie did the tour with us, she took us to several different places. She talked about around the Standard, but we went to several parts of town. We went around the Standard, we came downtown, we went out by the area by the slab, we went down into Duval? Yeah, we went down into Duval and Lincoln Estates. So we looked at, we tried to look at a good cross-section of the city, and time kind of got away from us, but looking at some of the residential areas and, how trees affect street lights, high mass lighting versus pedestrian scale lighting. And so the approach we took was, first of all, we have to report back to the commission. But in parallel with, we went ahead and started looking at some of the ordinances that prohibit us from doing that. And Mr. Calderon and Mr. Persons and their group is leading the ordinance revisions, because what I didn't want, or what the committee didn't want to lose sight of, is the fact that we have a lot of large buildings going up. And one of the things that amazed me is we have an ordinance that prevents light trespass. So our own ordinance prevents these high-rise buildings from having lights on the side that light up the sidewalk. So Mr. Calderon and Mr. Persons and their group, that's kind of the things they're working on. We went ahead and started working on some of those things because every minute that passes, new developments are being submitted. So the longer we delay doing that, the more developments will get approved without that lighting. So we want to make sure that as we do this, we're doing the most effective job we can to meet the goals that the commission gave us back in last February. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. Oh, there was one thing you did ask us for, and I remembered this in the middle of the night that we didn't have a slide for it. Right now, Public Works and GRU, it's every 3 to 4 years that we trim the street lights around them. One of the things the commission asked us to bring back was the cost to do it every year, every other year, or every 3 years. Right now, because we do it every 3 to 4 years, it would take an increment of $251,000 to make sure we do it every 3 years, $377,000 increment to do it every other year, and $755,000 increment to trim around every street light every year. And with that, I will conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. And I do just want to say, thank you to everyone. We often talk about silos and how we need to break them down. This is a perfect demonstration of it, and I would love to see more of that as we go forward. So thank you for being the model. Commissioner Hayes-Sanchez?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you all for your work on this. It really was like a citywide effort. It's also interesting talking to some staff. I think sometimes the more you dig into our streetlight issues, you realize that we actually do have a lot of issues. It's dark in many places, and a lot of it is our fault. We have made that because of the ordinance. I mean, you look at the new buildings, and they are darker than the buildings that have been there for 50 years, and that shouldn't be the case. I do want to just some questions on the vegetation, or just kind of we're paying, the general government's paying GRU for those lights if they're covered with vegetation or not. Where when they're covered by vegetation, we're just not getting any use out of them. And we are Florida, and so I mean, in other cities, they have snow removal, they have the things that they have to deal with of just this constant extra stuff. We're in Florida where vegetation never really stops growing. I mean, 3 to 4 years, if you look up, it's not often enough to be able to actually deal with the issues that we have in our city. I don't think going every year is that's a big budget increment, but I think trying to go every 3 years and trying to make sure that happens as a step and see how much that helps would be that is a budget increment, but it is something that deals with safety, deals not only with our homicides, or not by like pedestrian crashes and stuff like that, but also the police. And that's one of the complaints that I've heard many times from our police department is just poor lighting many times can lead to crime and people doing things. So and then also just like in our downtown area, like people feel safer. They will go out and use the streets more if they are more well lit and they're consistently lit too, which is another major thing, that if you have a tree that blocks an area and then you have some lights and then stuff like that, then those shadows make people feel not safe. There are recommendations in the report. I don't know if you bring that up or not. I think we should move forward with all 4 of those recommendations. And I think, Mr. Person, is it correct that you're planning to go before the plan board in June? Is that correct? If we move forward on these ordinances?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Andrew Persons, Sustainable Development. That is our intent, is to bring that to the June Plan Board. We've had some internal discussions about terms of the lighting standards and which sort of standards we want to keep in place in an interim basis until the lighting engineer that's working for Public Works is finished. But that's our intent. I did want to point out, I think, something for the commission's consideration around what you're talking about with the enhanced tree trimming. If you recall, a couple of years ago, this issue was brought up by staff as a potential, I think, reasonable amendment to our tree mitigation, use of tree mitigation funds. Particularly, I think in this is something that we're going above and beyond what is just baseline tree maintenance, and something that we're trying to get to a greater public purpose. So that's something I think the commission would be free to consider again, and certainly I think staff would again support that minor change to the fee.
And the regulations, I mean, I know you have so many trees, but then it conflicts with the street lights. So is the direction kind of going, well, maybe we'll have trees that maybe are just larger and have more canopy and have street lights in between and not just have a bunch of trees all condensed into one place? I don't know, the Santa Fe building is one where it seems to be a little weird how it's done, but how is it kind of?
I'll venture into and if I say anything
we don't have to get
wrong,
into that right
Mr.
now.
Calderon. But I think right now the city's code doesn't differentiate between high mast and pedestrian height fixtures, and so that would be something that we would look at in addition to spacing, but also the height of the fixtures, so that it would be below the tree canopy when it grows up.
And
right?
I think you're going to. Okay, good. I think that the direction you were talking about, having different lighting standards in different areas, I think is important. Like South Main Street is something we newly built, and I think that's a well-lit area, and probably in our downtown and high-density areas we should have that, but in low. So I don't know if it's planning to, I guess, on the streets or by zoning. I mean, the zoning we kind of know for the future too, what that might develop as well, since when we're putting in poles, they should last for quite a while too. Is that kind of the direction of looking at it in terms of?
That's my understanding. Is what we're looking at is looking at the areas that Chief Inspector Koenig highlighted as being particular areas we wanted to look at for pedestrian safety, and those generally correspond with the areas that you have currently zoned with higher order transect zones. So like Urban 9, Urban 8, downtown zoning, those types of things. So we would correlate that with any increased lighting. And I think we've talked about looking at a couple of different interim lighting standards. And The FDOT Green Book standards have like context sort of sensitive lighting standards based on anticipated conditions. And so like in those high commercial areas, those would generally correspond with A, higher lighting levels, and B, with where we have higher order trans-site zoning. So I think it's a pretty good fit.
Yeah, 'cause the University Avenue is actually pretty dark for street. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Anyone? Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. An interesting thing to point out, I think, is that unpruned trees are not necessarily healthy trees. So not only are we talking about saving lives here and making a more walkable city, but it's also good for the trees to keep it properly pruned, more than just when you have to. So I just think I think that matters. I like the 4 recommendations in the report. Interested in hearing what everybody else has to say before we move forward with anything. Thank you.
Well, I was going to put a motion on the floor, but I didn't hear from
No,
you.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to move that we move forward with the recommendations from staff, from the report, and then that, I guess hopefully as soon as you can to the plan board, once you have that. And that we also, not saying we're going to budget this, but to consider a budget increment of what it would take if we did the trees every 3 years.
I'll second. So would you, the budget increment, would you be taking that from the tree mitigation fund?
I think that's a discussion we should,
Because that's what they recommended.
yeah.
So would you put that in your motion?
I think it's one of the things we can consider, that also.
If I may, so the mayor will probably agree with this. We generally try not to pigeonhole where money comes from, so that they have the freedom to.
Okay, well, while they have the freedom, so that it doesn't come out of our budget, I would certainly like to look to the tree mitigation fund.
I think they heard that.
And so, yeah, that's not the reason. I think it's fine if we say where to go. To an extent, that last time we talked about it brought back there was a lot of community pushback as well on that. So just keep that in mind. If we start to go down that route, it opens up another can of worms.
Yeah, but I just think that is a good use of the fund.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we should consider.
It's really a safety to
I'm
life issue.
open with them considering it.
Yeah,
as part of it.
That's it. I think we have one of our stuff people.
Hi, I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm here. This is Chelsea, the urban forestry inspector. I had a problem sign on earlier, but if anyone has any questions for me, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm here.
Thank you.
No problem. I did want to say that as far as the use of the tree mitigation fund for that purpose, in the past, the tree advisory board has been, and arborists and stuff, has been historically against that. So that's just something to consider going forward.
It's just something for them to consider. It's a safety to life issue.
Right. The fund, though, is in our code. It's written to be used just for maintenance, not maintenance. I'm sorry, just for establishment of trees. So that's like generally their.
I think what I'm saying is that it needs to be looked at again. That's my point. It's a safety to life.
And that's something to look at. Staff.
Thank you.
And the second part of your motion was to make room for it.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. I was just letting you know from my perspective, that's what they said.
What is her?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elsie. Just to make sure the motion was move the staff recommendations, and the second was to make an increment. Allow for an increment in the budget.
For us to have that during our budget discussions of every, I don't want us to make a decision today, but when we come back to budget discussions, that there's an increment.
So we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And if there needs to be a change.
Okay, Mr. Mayor? Do you?
Yeah, I support to recommend, the 4 recommendations.
Anyone else? Anyone signed up to speak?
We do have one person signed up to speak on this item. Mr. Warren Nielsen.
And Hannah Silva.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I
Can you
want
give
you to know how
us 1
delighted.
second, Mr. Warren, sorry.
Yeah, it's just one
so our
sheet.
clerk is able to keep time and we keep things equitable. Okay. You make it.
We good?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to say how delighted I am to return and spend an afternoon in room 16 in the basement of City Hall. Talk about deja vu. Anyway, first, let me applaud the comments that I've heard so far from commissioners and specifically staff, Mr. Calderon, Mr. Mann, Mr. Persons, and our GPD Chief Inspector, and I don't know your last name.
It's Kearney.
Kearney.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank you for the kindness.
Thank you. Anyway, I have a number of, I agree with what I'm hearing, and I'm happy. I want you to understand that I don't think there's an issue in urbanism in the city that's more important than this right now. Pedestrians make the city, and if they're not safe and comfortable, we don't have a city. We have some problems in terms of urgency. Please note that the report that I received was dated February 11th, 2021. That's 15 months ago. We can't afford another 15 months on some of these high developed corridors that are going in right now, specifically on 13th Street and University Avenue. We all know about the projects going on. Go around there now and you can see the platoons of students and other people up and down those corridors. I invite you to go in the evening on 13th Street, South 13th Street, specifically, the Norman Hall area, the Sorority Row area. Cruise there on the right-hand lane and then watch and look on the right side and see the barely focused silhouettes you see of platoons of students going up and down that street. I'm not overstating this. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm shocked at how dark that is. Also, north of the university, on the north side of University Avenue, the lighting there is very, very poor. Again, silhouettes. This thing you hear what I'm saying. I'm not going to go exaggerate any more than what I'm saying. First, I would like you to consider this. Consider expediting the process with respect to these corridors. They can't wait. I think what we need to do is develop a plan that deals not only with newly proposed developments, but also with developments that are in place that have a void of pedestrian lighting. I believe the new developments can be accommodated in the site development plans. It should be part of our ordinances and regulations when it goes before particularly the plan board, that's included. And I know many developers that I've talked to would be more than pleased to incorporate a pedestrian lighting plan. Now, there's an opportunity also to deal with established projects, go retro on it, talk to the developers, the city, see if they can get some collaboration. If you can't get the standalone pedestrian lights or the lights that can be put on the tall masts, the regular street lights that like we have in South Main Street, you could also work with the buildings themselves to put...
Sorry, Mr. Anderson, sorry. If you could conclude, I completely missed that.
I'm sorry.
Your time's up. If you could conclude.
I conclude then. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was on the clock in this meeting. I thought it was like the old committee meetings we used to have. We used to be able to... I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, my apologies for cutting you off. Ms. Silva?
Well, he had 21 seconds to go.
No, he was over.
Oh, he was over.
I was listening and not looking.
Hi, Tana Silva. I've had this conversation a few times lately about walkability and what it really means. And I look at, the segment of North Main and a little bit of South Main right at University Avenue. The beautiful trees, they're on the street. The sidewalk is inside. It feels safe. It's very pleasant. And there's shade, and the buildings are set back. That's not what's happening now, especially in the transect zones. They're built right up to the curb practically. They reflect heat, they reflect light, they reflect exhaust fumes, they reflect noise. It's very unpleasant. And the broad stretches that we have of sidewalks with no trees at all are not walkable in the best sense. And so these are considerations that need to be taken into thought also. Light pollution is a problem, particularly with LED lights that are very bright and intense. So, you know, there needs to be a balance, and I see that that's part of the committee's charge, was to look for a balance. But I'm saying trees are under assault citywide. Properties are being clear cut, and I'm talking about huge centuries-old oaks in Pleasant Street and other neighborhoods. And, you know, generally, a few years back, with the different, you know, the form-based code and all of that, it seemed like trees, NIMBYs, and regulations were the reason that, you know, there wasn't enough buildings or something in the city. I think you need to take special care with trees as, you know, as an integral part of our city. They protect us, they, you know, all the beautiful benefits that they give us, and especially in terms of walkability. So I would be very careful before going with some widespread plan to favor lights over trees, because a lot of the activity occurs during the daytime when you really need the shade and all the other benefits. So I don't know the statistics of how many accidents or crashes, whatever you want to call them, happen during the daytime, during the daylight hours, and how many are at night. I certainly understand Mr. Nielsen's point about certain areas that do need more lighting because there are more pedestrians at night. So those are considerations that I hope you will take in.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. Anyone else? Anyone else? So before we move to vote, I do just want to, one thing that was jogged in my memory, my only traffic ticket in my entire life was because the street sign was behind a tree and the light was in the tree. So I didn't see it, but it was my fault. And GPD GPD would have the report for that. So this is an important issue, if only for that. Commissioner Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I don't know if staff has any thoughts on Mr. Nielsen's about the retrofittings. We do have these buildings that and built last year, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago, and 4 years ago, and they're with our kind of old ordinance. And how do we kind of, do you all have any thoughts on how do we actually fix those areas that they just got built last week and stuff like that?
So, the ordinance we intend to bring has a non-conforming provision on it, and levels at which would trigger bringing the development to code. For example, if it's more than 50%, which is what we use in some of the other areas, that would trigger bringing the building into compliance. Another option that we looked at would be placing light fixtures on buildings that's within a reasonable distance. So that way, we may not be able to get a vertical fixture, but we can get a wall pack on there that would produce the light intensity that we need. And that's some of the ways that we... But on the tree issue, the hope is that as we implement these ordinances on a day-to-day basis and we do the current trimming, that we would minimize the ability to have to deal with those lighting and tree conflicts. So over time, we would be ahead of the game.
I think it's something for us to consider as well, is those areas that need retrofitting, and is a halfway with the developer. I don't know how we get there on these buildings that have already been built, but these are all in CRA areas as well, in terms of how do we make sure that these areas get... Some of these buildings are not going to get 150% retrofit in the next 30 or 40 years. So, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Dean, would you have anything to add on that issue as far as kind of requiring retrofitting?
I think we'll have to see what they come forward with and go from there. I don't want to prejudge anything.
Okay.
I'll have staff come back with some recommendations on that, rather than just right now saying we can do that. I would prefer that staff come back with some recommendations. They'll certainly work with Mr. Dean, and we'll come back with the recommendation.
Great. Wanted to see if there was at any moment no, don't do any of that from the attorney. So yeah, I'll await those. So we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Cool. That passes unanimously, 5-0. Last thing, public comment. Has anyone signed up for general public comment?
Mrs. Silva?
Ms. Silva?
So I, watched her at home first and here and seen the deep level of detail that the whole commission is involved in, and I look forward to seeing the proposal for returning to standing committees. In this room, they used to be right here, and people were sitting around the table. There were chairs on either side, and it was a free exchange between, there weren't cameras and all of that, you could get a lot of detail done, a lot of detailed work done to bring back to the whole commission. And I hope that goes forward. Meantime, I think urgently, a big inconsistency in the level of detail that the commission is hearing is in two areas. And one is sending proposals through the plan board urgently that have not been vetted. And the plan board members have expressed concerns about the comprehensive plan, the rezoning, and about various details of it that I've sent you all, a link to the captions so you could get an idea of the level of detail that they're going into. These are huge citywide zoning and issues that cannot be undone, cannot very easily be undone ever. And so, pushing those onto the plan board agenda for May 26th is not giving anyone an appropriate chance to really review the level of detail that is needed before going forward with those major changes to the city comprehensive plan and the zoning. And I again refer you to some of the comments from the plan board members themselves, as well as people of the public who have expertise and experience that the commission really needs to hear. And the other item that's instead is being dragged back is the open container, as I understand it, that's now not going to be such an urgent thing. Although, the justification for delaying it seems to be some idea that the law itself is discriminatory. No, I can tell you about selective enforcement of laws and codes in the cities going back as long as I've lived in Pleasant Street and before. And if there's a problem there, it's in enforcement, not in the law itself. So I hope you will go ahead with reinstating the ordinance for the open container law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. And just to clarify, I don't think staff has told us anything about a delay.
I saw a news report with the commissioner making those remarks.
Okay, good to know. Anyone else for general public comment? Okay, member comment.
Good job.
Thank you. I was going to say, anyone? Cool. Thank you.
I feel better, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, if you need anything, let us know. Do you need a member comment? Gonna take those a no. Okay. Our next meeting is May 26th. That's for our next GBC. Thank you, everyone. This has been pleasant. I hope the mayor gets well soon. Adjourned.